Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia for tonight's coverage of the Northwest Truck Series. Tonight, it's the 11th race of the season. It's the Richmond Raceway 200, live on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. Justin Prince alongside Greg Rent in the broadcast booth with you tonight. Wim Duvall in the director's seat for what should be an exciting race here under the hot sun in Richmond. Greg, tonight we go short track racing. It should be an entertaining one and a potential preview for what drivers could expect to see for Road to Pro in just a couple days.
Absolutely, Justin. It is going to be entertaining. 200 laps around the 3/4 of a mile Richmond Raceway. And Justin, not just the long distance here in this one, the track temperature is hot, hot, hot. 129-degree racing surface that these drivers are about to qualify on. Justin, that means these tires are going to be screaming by the end of their runs on the track tonight. Tire conservation is going to be the key to pulling this one off tonight.
Throughout the week in practices in preparation for tonight's race, some of the drivers are saying they've seen temperatures as high as 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Could be very massive tonight, absolutely. The last race for this series came on May the 14th, which was also a preview for Road to Pro competition at Michigan International Speedway. Ended up going 103 laps, 206 total miles, where Jeff Stabnow came with the victory in a fairly entertaining race overall, Greg.
Yeah, it was a good race back here a couple weeks ago at Charlotte, Justin. It was one of those races that you really couldn't get a grasp on who was the dominant car, or truck in this case. And it really came down at the end to just who was able to keep their cool the longest, which is something I'm expecting to see here tonight. And Jeff Stabnow with his second straight win over the competition, and I apologize, that race was actually in Michigan. I was thinking back to the Cup race, but same result. Jeff Stabnow taking the win in both of those. But the Michigan race, we saw a long green flag run in the course of the race, but in the end, it was still whoever was patient, because we saw a couple of cautions late in the race, Justin. So the late race cautions seemed to affect the outcome with it. Stabnow was able to keep it clean and catapult himself to the victory, but not without having to dodge a couple of bullets late.
Yeah, in a 28 truck field, Stabnow came with the victory. 3 straight poles entering tonight as well. An absolute talking point throughout the evening. But let's talk about the championship battle, as Dan West Jr. is still on top of the standings with 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s, 24 points ahead of Jeff Stabnow. Stabnow is the season leader, though, in total poles with 5 and 2 victories. West Jr. with 3. Ryan Maines, Corey Walters, John Ottenbacher round out the top 5, and the points battle is starting to get pretty tight amongst a couple of the groupings inside the top 10 entry tonight, Greg.
Yeah, and the points battle is just going to keep getting tighter and tighter here throughout the course of the race season if these drivers are able to continue what they have been doing so far and really been putting the pressure on Dan West Jr. West Jr. has had some dominating performances, which is why he is the points leader, but he's had a little bit of a problem putting it together at the end. Yes, he has a few victories, but he has had so many races. Think back to the race at Bristol, in which he led the most laps, got caught in a late race accident. Race at Charlotte, got put down early on a penalty, fought all the way back to second in striking distance, and got loose coming to the white flag, dropped him out of the top 5. Dan West Jr., points leader, yes, but has had his string of bad luck. So West Jr., fastest in practice so far today, hoping that he's got most of that behind him. But that bad luck has been what is keeping this points battle so tight.
The last time this series came to Richmond was back in 2019, and Greg, at that time, a lot of fireworks. Sean Brightsman came with the victory, led most laps for part of the day at 58. Mark Walls had led the most, total 71 laps, but finished with the DNF after being the pole sitter in that race. 15 cautions in that event, 5 lead changes over the course of what was 150 laps here at Richmond. You mentioned the tire conservation. It's also going to potentially be about conserving the bodywork on your truck this evening, in my opinion, Greg.
Absolutely. It's going to be a big key to this one, Justin. Drivers' meeting should be wrapping up here shortly, as the drivers are getting their last couple of instructions from series directors before they take the green. So, Justin, we've talked a little bit about key points here tonight. What are you expecting to see driver-wise? Who's a couple of drivers you're keeping an eye on?
Well, we already talked West Junior and Stabno, but I think one of the drivers, based on our discussions before we came on the air tonight, Caden Anderson, bit of a different look tonight with his red truck. Second quickest in practice, Greg.
Yeah, and that happened right around the end of practice. He was sitting around seventh or eighth and went out for his mock qualifying run and went right up to second right at the end of practice. So Caden Anderson, the 37, should be no surprise that the 37 of Anderson is showing speed here in this series and in this race today because hey, Caden Anderson is one of those guys who will race anything with four wheels and a steering wheel here on the iRacing server. He's that way in real life as well. He'll race just about anything, but Caden Anderson, I believe, over the last 6, 7 months or so, has more starts on the server in league, official, hosted competition than any other driver in this field. So no surprise to see him tracking near the top. Another guy who's tracking in the top five, who we haven't really talked about a whole lot this season, the 28, William Fletcher, sitting in fourth on the practice charts right now at a 22.048, about 2/hundredths of a second off of Jeff Stabnow in third. Fletcher having a good run here today so far. I'm keeping my eyes on the 28 truck as well.
Qualifying now underway. Drivers have been instructed they have 10 minutes to set their fastest time after 2 solo qualifying laps for this event. Taking a look at Stephen O'Hare right now with a 41 truck. Tonight, having the Keep Oregon Well livery on his 41 Chevrolet Silverado, was one of the mid-pack runners in practice tonight, Greg.
But Stephen O'Hare is one of those guys you have to keep an eye on in this series every time he is on the track. He, remember, picked up the win at Texas in this truck series earlier this year by playing a little bit of a strategy game. It was a late race gamble that put him in the position to capitalize when the leaders had problems, and he was able to do that and pick up the win at Texas. But he just had a big slide off of turn number 2 there. So looks like the 22.338 is going to be the lap that counts for Stephen O'Hare. So not the lap he was looking for per se, Justin, but we know that Stephen O'Hare is not shy about trying to get himself in a position to capitalize. And it worked at Texas earlier. Looking for it again here tonight.
Taking a look at Autumn Bacher as he completes his second lap, faster than James Thurston, currently fourth in terms of the qualifiers so far in tonight's action. As talked about, open setup for this series tonight. Many competitors have the chance and the time to build their own trucks for this evening. Bill Ross Jr. had very quick raw speed and race pace. As we've seen, though, a couple drivers have struggled to get to that all-important yellow line at the bottom of 1 and 2 to be the fastest way around the track.
And that, I believe, would be a product of just how hot and slippery this track surface is. Well over 100 degrees. Checking the track temperature now, has gone down to 128 degrees. We saw it up in the 131 bracket in practice. That's how hot it was when I arrived to the racetrack a few moments before qualifying began. I'm not sure how hot it was earlier in the day, but I think that these drivers having a problem sticking to the yellow line, I think that's a direct result of how hot this racing surface is and the lack of grip in these fresh sticker tires that these drivers are qualifying on.
Ross Jr. nearly bobbled around on his second lap, still bumped it up to a 22.115 in qualifying. Now, taking a look at Cameron Doyle, one of the drivers to keep an eye on, as we've talked about, had some good speed in practice, but as well, one of the drivers with limited starts and or making their first starts tonight. Chris White in the field tonight for his third start. Tom Green and Jackson Steiner making their first starts of 2020 as well.
A couple of other drivers who have made a limited number of starts in the series that are in this race here tonight. Adam Chisholm in the number 70, and Tyler King, who joined the series about halfway into the season in the 44 truck, currently sitting in fifth. And I want to take just a second to talk about that 44 truck of Tyler King, because both in this truck series and over on the Cup side that runs on Monday nights here on LSR TV, Tyler King has had some great runs. I can't think of a race in the times that he has been running that we haven't been impressed with how he was running. Unfortunately, it just hasn't been there at the end for him, as he's another one of those drivers who has been struggling with some bad luck throughout the course of the day in this 44 truck. But when the luck goes his way, he is right there in the mix. And here he is sitting pretty again, well inside the top 5 in qualifying, currently sitting in the 6th position as William Fletcher has gone to 2nd. Carl Burke in 3rd, and Burke is another guy who's had some good runs. More on him in just a moment. But that 44 of Tyler King, I would say he's about due for a breakout race, Justin.
I think absolutely too. He's actually using this qualifying session as a bit more of extra practice in the National Alliance on Mental Illness Chevrolet Silverado for tonight's action. Still, though, most of the field has set their times, about 17 total trucks. One of those trucks that has not set a time is Dan West Jr., quickest driver in practice by a full 10.5 seconds. As the Effective Web Solutions truck first lap around a 21.946. Like in practice, the only truck so far to break into the 21-second bracket.
21.946 again, the time for Dan West Jr. Second quick is Chris Wright, 22.105. That just shows you the difference in speed that the 55 has as the one right now. And he goes quicker on the second lap, 21.937. Not up there with his practice time, just barely. The 21.897 in practice was the time that he set, but Dan West Jr. able to go top of the board in practice. A couple of heavy hitters still to go, however. One guy who I'm kind of surprised a little bit, I didn't see him out there, may have caught the wall on the second lap or even the first lap right in a crucial part. The Homestead Miami winner, Dan West Jr.'s son, Devin, bottom of the charts right now in 19th position. That is a very uncharacteristic time for Devin West.
Yeah, 23 flat. Had a massive drift confirmed, by the way, in 1 and 2 after having trouble on his first lap. So if you end up drifting around, that will lose you tons of time. It was the same thing you may have seen for those who tune in for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series here, Greg, where it was Ryan Michaeluza who drifted on his qualifying lap, started 39th, and took him half the race to be able to gain the track position to win that race.
And that just shows you that just because you have a qualifying effort that does not go your way, it does not by any means mean you're out of the running here. As one truck that we're keeping an eye on, Caden Anderson in the 37 on track right now, just began his first qualifying lap. Remember, second in practice in the red, number 37, Harvest Chevrolet. New look for Caden Anderson this week, kind of taking after his real-life late model, one of his 2 late models, I should say. Bright red, number 37, going. He's 11th on the first lap, 22.371 for Caden Anderson. One of the top legend drivers in the Northwest for a few years, much like Devin West was before he went to the dirt modifieds. Caden Anderson stepping up to late models over the last couple of months of 2019 into 2020. And bringing a little bit of that look over to his car here as he jumps to 4th on the charts, 22.127.
As we've seen so far in qualifying, the fastest laps have been the second way around. Jeff Stabnow is now on the track meanwhile. He's had 3 straight poles entering tonight in the number 24 truck and has been very loose on his first lap around the circuit of should note. For Stabnow, a 22.321 on the first way around, about 10th, and drifting still on his second lap, really loose. He snapped multiple times in practice, Greg, before the drop of qualifying. At least several times got loose off the corner exit with how hot this track is.
And that right there is just showing how tricky this surface is. This is Jeff Stabnow going into tonight. 3 straight pulls on the season. That streak will end tonight as he goes 10th with a 22.321 go for Jeff Stabnow. But man, oh man, 3 straight pulls, and just like that, that streak is done and over, and all it took was a hot racing surface. So Stabnow, work cut out for him. But going back to what we talked about, not necessarily meaning out of the running, but definitely going to have a hard time. But Justin, me and you were keeping an eye on this situation because we were wondering where he was. Still not in the field, a guy who is always a threat in both the Cup Series and the Truck Series, one of the all-time win leaders in the Northwest Racing Series. Sean Brightsman not in the field tonight.
Yeah, that could be pretty big. Remember, Brightsman just 8 victories away entering tonight in the history of the Northwest Racing Series from Mark Walls, the all-time series history win leader. Not going to be in the field tonight as Tyler King done with his practice laps. As you can see here, 4 trucks, though, have not set qualifying times. Ray Fournier, Tom Green, Frank Harris, Corey Walters are those 4 trucks who have not set a time in qualifying. Before we get towards the end of qualifying in the starting grid tonight, Greg, what, in your opinion, will be the keys to victory with this hot of a track and this difficult of a circuit for tonight's race?
Well, going back to what we talked about earlier with the hot racing surface, you're going to have to be patient. You cannot go gung-ho in the first couple of laps because this track is so hot and those tires are so fresh, they're so slick that if you go all out in the first 5 laps, it's going to end right up in one of those many banners that you see riding the safer barrier here at Richmond if you're not careful. So you are going to have to show patience here. It is a long race, 200 laps, and a scorching hot day here in Richmond, Virginia. So you are going to want to show patience, and really it's going to come down to who can keep their cool the longest, and that might be a tough task, Justin, because it's such a long race. The track temp is so hot. The trucks are going to be fighting you every step of the way. It's going to be a race of attrition tonight. Qualifying has concluded, so with this, the race of attrition is set to begin as Dan West Jr. is on the pole, Justin, and here we go. The drivers are beginning the grid.
It's so hot you can fry an egg on the pavement of the track. Let's see how they'll start for tonight's action of the Northwest Truck Series live from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Dan West Jr. starts on the pole tonight with a 21.937. That is about nearly 2/10 quicker than Chris White, who will start alongside him on the front row. Bill Ross Jr. starts in third with Caden Anderson in P number 4. Will Fletcher alongside Carl Burke in row 3, with Cameron Doyle with a strong qualified run in 7th. Ryan Maines will start in P number 8. Tyler King starts off in 9th, and Jeff Stabnell, after sliding and slipping around on his second qualifying lap, rounds out your top 10, Greg.
Brett Johnson in the number 7, a good run in the Cup Series at Charlotte last week, still searching for that truck win, will roll off in the 11th spot. To his outside, Texas winner Stephen O'Hare in the 41. John Ottenbacher, another driver who turned a lot of heads last time we were on LSR TV in the Cup Series at Charlotte, will roll off in the 13th position in the bright green LSR TV Chevy. Stephen Paulison in the 58 to his outside. Dan Lowther, a guy who has come into his own lately here in the Northwest Racing Series, rolls off 15th, but he said he was nervous about coming to Richmond tonight. Adam Chisholm will roll off to his outside in the number 25, making what I believe is his 4th start of the season. Jackson Steiner making his debut tonight in the 171. Looks like it says number 44 on the door, at least from what I'm seeing. He will roll off alongside James Thurston with a new look in the number 2. Rounding out the top 20, the 18 of Roy Grande with a new look for him. No Taco Bell on the card this week, with Dana Rogers rounding out the top 20.
Only one air qualifier for tonight's race, and Devin West. Everyone else set via provisionals for this evening. Ray Fournier in 22nd. Tom Green making his first start of the season, 23rd. Frank Harris, Corey Walters, the 25 trucks who brought their machines to Richmond Raceway for tonight. Once again, all set to get going at this 0.75 mile short track here in Richmond. As talked about the weather conditions tonight, 84 degrees Fahrenheit, now 127 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds gusting to the southwest at the moment, about 8 to 9 miles an hour. Humidity very low as well. Fairly dry air conditions in tonight's race. See how this action goes this evening with Dan West Jr. in control of the field. Your final thoughts before the green flag waves for these drivers?
I'm very curious to see what happens these first few laps. With the track temperature this hot, things can get hairy in a hurry, so it will be very interesting to see how this race unfolds here in the opening stages of the lap, or opening stages of the race, I should say. Dan West Jr., the guy who has led the points and had the fastest truck pretty much all season, but looking to try to put one together here as the short tracks have not been kind to Dan West Jr. He's rolling off, but I'm watching for the drivers around 5th, Caden Anderson, William Fletcher, Carl Burke. I'm looking for them to try to make some moves when they can, but show patience in the early stages.
They call this place the action track. One time noted for being sold out an incredible 33 consecutive NASCAR Cup Series dates up until 2018. Tonight, these drivers all set to rumble their way around Richmond Raceway in their trucks. Pace car is off. Dan West Jr. in control of the field. Chris White to the outside. Green flag is out. We're underway from Richmond.
West Jr. with a good start. Chris White hanging in there into number 83 so far. Caden Anderson looking to touch down on Bill Ross Jr. Might not have thought he was clear just yet. Now he will. And oh, he crosses back up behind White there as he got a run on Bill Ross Jr. Now West Jr. running away, but the caution is out early.
Well, that was quick, about half a track, and it's Adam Chisholm to draw the caution flag. That was after a massive botch on the start where Stephen Paulison missed the gears, ended up collecting Steiner. Then Chisholm gets spun around and the exit of turn 2. Mind you, Chisholm ran over the back end of Paulison right before that.
James Thurston got a piece of that as well in the 2 truck. And oh, some contact with Roy Grande. Also,
yep,
sending around Chisholm, and that was kind of the final. That was the straw that broke the camel's back there on that one.
Not how you want to start the race, and it can be fairly easy to miss a shift when it comes to these trucks. You do start at second gear with the spec engines that these machines have, but as well, you need to be very quick on the gears. You have only maybe half a second to get up from second to third, then another half a second from second to third to fourth.
Absolutely, Justin, and missing a shift, we've seen it so many times in so many different situations. It can cost the driver so much, and we see it typically later in the race, but when it happens on the initial start, that's a heartbreaker because you're coming in, you got the jitters going, you're ready to get going, it's a long race, you take the green flag, and to have something happen that quick, it honestly kind of messes with your psyche a little bit because you're like, oh my goodness, we haven't even completed a lap yet and we've already made a mistake and it's already put us behind the 8 ball. And unfortunate that it happened to these guys, and it's unfortunate that Adam Chisholm got the worst of it there because it wasn't him who missed the shift. So that's a tough break for the 25 of Adam Chisholm. Looking like one driver did not make the grid. That was the 9 of Corey Walters. 24 trucks looking like they took the green flag here tonight. Justin, Adam Chisholm coming off of pit road after getting some repairs, but still some damage on him on the 25 truck. Jackson Steiner making his debut slow on the backstretch in the number 171 on our tower, but I'm still showing him as a number 44, so that might get a little bit confusing with both him and Tyler King running the same number, as I believe they may or may not be teammates. I'd have to double check.
Either way, for Steiner, he ended up having to take damage repairs after he blew his engine. We mentioned the missed shift. Paulison had been hit from the back, as talked about by Chisholm, right into Steiner, and Steiner slammed the inside wall hard. That caution flag has been able to keep him on the lead lap as a result, though. But these trucks coming to the green, this time by Dan West Jr. on the bottom side, Chris White on the top side, followed by Bill Ross Jr., Anderson, Burt, Fletcher, Doyle, Main, Stabnow, King, the top 10. Let's try this again, shall we, Greg?
Hopefully we can get some laps in this time, Justin. Getting about 3/4 of a lap in before the incident happened. Yes, the incident happened coming off turn number 2, lap 1, but Dan West Jr. was already coming up on turn number 3 of this one. And I'm keeping my eye on the 37 of Anderson because he was kind of going back and forth between whether he wanted to go to Bill Ross Jr. or Chris White there before that caution came out. So I'm keeping an extra eye on that red Silverado in 4th as we go back green.
Back to racing at Richmond, still 194 to go this time by. Battle for second. Sees Bill Ross Jr. take on the bottom side. And one of the main things here at Richmond, you want to be on the bottom a lot of the times in the starts, especially with how that's the quickest way around. You don't want to get stuck on the middle line for too long.
Yeah, you get stuck in the middle and you can really find yourself in a lot of trouble. Cars and trucks passing you left and right if you're not careful. Looks like Chris White has settled things down in 3rd position, so he doesn't have to worry about that so far. Single file for a little bit. Looks like the first side-by-side battle is between William Fletcher and Jeff Stabnow, who is quietly making his way up here early. Started 10th. That pass on Fletcher moves into 7th.
Dana Rogers ended up having contact in 16th position. We stay green. He is about a quarter way up the field after contact. Single followed out, though, for about 7th on back now. That is where Jeff Stabnow's already moved his way on forward. And one driver having a slip on behind. That's William Fletcher with technical issues, having to peel off the racetrack After having such good speed in practice and as well in the early going into this race, he's now done for the race for the time being.
William Fletcher has indeed put it behind the wall, done for the night. Tough break for William Fletcher as he started out strong but was going the wrong way. But the guy who's having the polar opposite night so far started 21st, already up to 12th. We talked about him, Devin West, into number 5, new sponsor on the hood of the number 5, and it's got to be liking what it sees right now. 21st to 12th in just 10 laps, and that's with a caution.
Yeah, the washed cedar and supply truck tonight for Devin West. He's made some spot starts in this series and has done very well, and is looking to wash the competition by finding his way to ride up the cedar trees to the top of the field pylon.
You remember he won the Homestead race in this series earlier this year, but so many times in both the Truck Series and the Cup Series, we have been talking about Devin West and how good he is on the long run, how strong he is, being in position to get there. But he's another one of those drivers that just, it seems like something happened late in the race that seems to hinder him. So he's hoping that that luck has gone away here tonight. He's hoping that that luck has already struck in his qualifying lap, and he's hoping that that's out of the way here as he gains another spot on Ottenbacher.
Yep.
So move the 5 of West up into the 11th position, trying to reel in Cameron Doyle, and if he does, it'll be a very quick charge to the top 10 for Devin West. That number 5 truck is flying so far.
Trouble up the road from him for the battle for third position. Katie Anderson slapped the wall on corner entry, nearly smacked the wall on corner exit off of turn 2. That truck now has a bit of right front fender damage. And yes, there is a fast repair available in this series for those tuning for the first time. But the thing is with these trucks, if you get too much aerodynamic damage, it can slow you down again down the straightaways by a couple miles an hour with this type of engine.
And even on a short track, typically you wouldn't think it would be as effective on a short track as it would on, say, a Michigan or a Charlotte or a Kansas. And while that is true, it does still affect you just enough to where it might play a bad enough role that you would have to consider making a pit stop. But it doesn't seem like that's the case so far for Caden Anderson, as he's hanging in there, and he's actually able to get a run there on Bill Ross Jr. So far the damage on the 37 truck does not appear to be slowing him down, as he got a really good run on Bill Ross Jr. there through 1 and 2. Notice Bill Ross Jr. was way up the track. I wonder if something had happened to the 17 of Ross going into turn 1. We'll watch it here as he takes a much lower line, but Caden Anderson is able to cut into it even more. So the 37 truck not letting that damage get to him here in the early stages. Big slide behind him out of Carl Burke. He's still fighting it.
Yeah, Burke just able to hold on to that truck. Now misses the bottom off 3 and 4. But one of the fastest trucks the past couple laps, right behind him, even with the bobble, it's Jeff Stabnow, who is now moving through the field. Last time by ran a 22.2, with the checkup ran a 22.6. Still, however, moves up to the top 5. Lap traffic is ahead, should note, of Dana Rogers. So Stabnow's had to deal with a lot of the traffic and seems to be playing this nice and careful with how slick this track is. Remember, it's about 2:30 p.m. in sim time, so there's the chance it can get cooler as this event progresses tonight.
Not so far, Justin. It's actually gotten up a couple more degrees. It's up to the 130 mark. Now back into the 130, so it might cool off later, like you mentioned, but yeah, it is rising for now. Stabnow up to 5th right now. He's doing a good job. Remember, he has 2 straight wins entering this race here tonight. So looking for win number 3 on the season. And Justin, by the way, that new truck that Stabnow is running is undefeated, this new paint scheme.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful paint scheme on that truck with a mix of the dark red, the chrome, the black matte logos on that Walt Beardco machine. It's been flying when it's been on the Cup car as well, it seems, for his Chevrolet so far the past few weeks or so. Let's just put it that way. But at this moment, coming to 180 laps to go, to touch back on the track heating up, one of the main things when it comes to short track racing is, including groups such as Second and others are on this racetrack, you're going to have a lot of drivers racing around one another and building up rubber. It's seen on a lot of the short tracks, Greg, where the heat can rise fairly quickly as a run progresses.
And we're seeing it so far here at Richmond, as like you mentioned, these drivers are close together. They're laying down the rubber. We have had a good run here after the incident on the first lap. It's been clean and green since then as the battle for second continues. Anderson able to get up there to the inside of Bill Ross Jr. and able to get going. Good job there by Bill Ross Jr. to kind of just roll over and let Anderson go. Ross saying, hey, you're faster than me right now. I recognize that. I'll let you go. And Anderson can now set his sights on the leader of Dan West Jr. And Anderson was one of those guys who had something for West Jr. in practice. Remember that 37 was second in practice, fourth on the charts in qualifying. Dan West Jr. fastest in both of those, but Anderson now has his sights set on the 55.
But at the same time, you have to think big picture. I think that's also partly why Bill Ross Jr. let him go, is let him try and race and see if you can catch up to him later on if the tires equalize or the tires shift back in Ross Jr.'s favor. It's going to be interesting, though, when Jeff Stabno reaches these groups of trucks, because he has now been slowly closing on by half a tenth to a tenth of a second each time by the past 3 laps or so, 2 seconds on back. Bit of trouble, though, on the apron. Adam Chisholm has now blown another motor.
And that will most likely end the day for Adam Chisholm as he makes it back to pit road. But a blown motor, that takes a while to repair, Justin. So he's going to pull in, and I would have to assume that this might be the end of his day. We'll see as he makes it back to his pit stall.
Looks like Ed did bank up the faster pair after the contact on the first lap, but that's going to put him multiple laps down because he had that happen with the engine during green flag conditions, Greg.
He was able to keep it going, so Adam Chisholm, smart move there to keep the fast repair in case something happens, but still, lap 24, you don't want to use a fast repair that early. Quick checking on a couple of drivers that we've been keeping an eye on marching up to the front. Devin West has cracked the top 10 up into the 9th spot now, putting pressure on Brett Johnson for the 8th position. Jeff Stabnow in 5th, but is beginning to catch to this 2nd, 3rd, and 4th group as he is on the back bumper just about of Bill Ross Jr. And he's taking a lower entry than Bill Ross Jr. Kind of the same thing we saw with Anderson a little bit ago. Ross Jr. taking a higher line in 3 and 4, and again here in 1 and 2. Looks like the 17 might be having more problems hanging on to that yellow line than some of the others here early.
And when talking with some of the eNASCAR drivers for the Cup cars, they talked about there were 2 different ways you can enter the corners here. Try and go for a flatter entry, push up on apex, then try and diamond off the corner in turn 2. Then there's the going wider arc coming down to the bottom, stick to the bottom in turn 2, go wider on corner exit. It seems Stabno is preferring that second option in a lot of these runs, and that has been the fastest way around the track for a lot of these trucks so far, Greg.
And we saw it there off of turn number 2. He really got a good run in there on Bill Ross Jr. So Stabnow definitely showing that his way seems to be the fastest. Here we can see it into turn number 1, just able to get right by the 17 of Bill Ross Jr. Bow breaking out now for the 2nd spot ahead of them as Caden Anderson may have slid up the track there, and that allows Chris White to get back around him. So suddenly the 2nd place truck is now the truck that started in 2nd, so Chris White back up to where he started. Caden Anderson kind of falling back in there. So we're starting to see it right now. These drivers, they are starting to make a little slip up here and a little slip up there, and that is allowing these drivers behind them to capitalize. And I think that's going to be the trend moving forward here as we're going to see more of it, and these drivers are going to have to give and take.
There's been a lot of give and take so far in this race. So far, for those tuning in, coming to 168 laps to go, lot 32 at the moment. As this has gone on, though, with this battle, about a tenth of a second on average quicker the past few laps has been the leader. Dan West Jr., he's pulled more than 2 seconds on the field, and his son Devin West is in the same ballpark as him a lot of the times. Everyone else is running the 22.8s.
But Stephen O'Hare in the 41 was able to get back around Devin West, as last time we checked in, O'Hare was actually behind the 5 of West, so O'Hare was able to get back up there. And O'Hare no slouch so far either. He started 12th, moving up to 7th, and that goes back to what we talked about in qualifying. Just because he might not be having the qualifying speed, you cannot count Stephen O'Hare out of a run. Remember, he won in Texas by just putting himself in the right place at the right time. Seems to be doing the same here so far as he tries to track down Tyler King, who once again having another solid performance here in the early going, started 9th up to 6th. So Tyler King plus 3 positions, showing once again that he has speed in the 44 truck.
And one of the main reasons why O'Hare was able to get by West is that Devin West was trying to make a pass a couple laps ago on the truck in front. Couldn't get the pass done, had to get off the gas on corner exit. Guess what? O'Hare was able to take advantage and take the spot away after being able to keep better momentum on the bottom side for a full lap. That's where you have to make those calculated decisions on making smart passes instead of just saying, there's a hole at the bottom of the track, I'm going to try and stick my truck into the space and hope it stays and moves up a spot.
Yeah, it's too early to make a move like that, like you mentioned there, Justin. Just trying to throw it in and hope it sticks is not necessarily something you want to do on a normal circumstance, and that's not even factoring in the 131-degree track temperature that these drivers are dealing with right now. This track is slipping and sliding. These tires are going to be screaming by the end of it, Justin. So before we get up into pit stops, but the leader, Dan West Jr., is now getting the first challenge of the day as he has caught the tail end of the field and is beginning to cycle his way through traffic.
He's lost a few tenths of a second the past couple laps with all of this traffic, and traffic management so key because it's the same philosophy we talked about with the passes where you don't want to just force it in. At the same time, though, if you don't make the pass on traffic in the right spots, you lose a ton of time. That's how Chris White has now closed in 4/10 of a second the past 6 laps.
So that's just the product of catching lap traffic, and if you catch him in the right spot, it's not too much of a problem. But it seems like Dan West Jr. had a little bit of a problem with where he was catching traffic in a spot that he couldn't necessarily make a move for a couple of seconds, and that is what was allowing Chris White to close in a little bit, as he's now beginning to pull back away as he's up in clean air for the time being, as Chris White begins to cycle his way through the same traffic. He's coming up on the 26 of Ray Fournier. He's pulled back away from Caden Anderson a little bit, 7/10 of a second last time by, with Stab now beginning to close in on Anderson as he has gotten around Bill Ross Jr. and is trying to make his way up toward the bumper of Caden Anderson in the 37. Anderson has had so many strong runs here and has had some great finishes in this series, and also on the Cup side, and even back last year when instead of the Cup cars, they were running the B cars, the Xfinity Series cars. Anderson had several strong runs. Hasn't been able to put it together yet in this series, though. So he's looking for that first Northwest Racing Series victory and showing that he's got good speed. It could come tonight as we have had our second truck retire from tonight, and it's the driver that was making his debut tonight, Jackson Steiner, in the 171 going behind the wall.
So that is now 2 drivers out of the race and 1 DNS. Now 22 drivers running. Currently just a couple drivers 1 lap down at the moment. We've talked a lot about the battling so far at this point. How do you keep yourself mentally focused on the rhythm of these types of runs? Because it's a very technical short track, Greg, where missing your mark even by a couple feet can cost you half a second if you have the corner exit go that off. It's so important to make sure you keep your focus and keep loose in some cases.
And honestly, the longer the green flag run, the easier that gets. At least it does for me. I've always excelled in the driver's seat on long runs. It's the short runs that I seem to have the issue with, because you get all fired up, you're ready to go, and then as soon as you go and a caution comes out, drops you back down, and you're like, gotta do it again. Where if you can get that adrenaline flowing on the long run, you can kind of settle in and get used to that, and by being able to have that same feeling for a while, it helps you get used to it, and it helps me, per se, get into a rhythm easier. So I've always preferred the long run, and we're kind of seeing that with Dan West Jr., Chris White, and others, that the longer the run goes, the more stable they seem to run, as the gap is ever so slightly beginning to close between White and West, as West got held up again by lap traffic, that being the 11 of Frank Harris, now going after Daniel Rogers in the 07. But yeah, for me, it's always been the long run has been preferred, because once you're able to get going and you're able to get into that rhythm, it's easier to hang on and keep in that rhythm. For me, the hard part is getting into that rhythm on the short runs.
Of note, Devin West was able to get back by O'Hare the past couple laps. That was after he passed him and Tyra Kane. Of note, the 44 truck has been starting to slip and slide on some of these corner exits, so the fall off already at this point, only about 9/10 of a second for the fastest trucks. But for some of the others, nearly 2 full seconds for the back half of the field.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one here so far, Justin, as now Chris White beginning to catch up to Dan Rogers, was able to get around Frank Harris. Another driver missing from the field tonight, Frank Harris's teammate Steve Jennings, who has shown speed in the truck series, not in the field tonight in the 111, so not sure where he is tonight, but Chris White gets back around the lap traffic. West Jr. now able to stretch it out a little bit, but we'll keep an eye on this here as we have had such a long green flag run. We may be starting to creep up here on green flag pit stops. The thought may be beginning to creep in to the driver's head. We still have a ways to go before we get to that stage, but that thought might be starting to creep into these drivers' heads.
Yeah, and logic says on the fuel, it's a one-stopper because the max you can go about 120 laps here at Richmond Raceway for a majority of vehicle types. But the thought process also crosses over, Greg. Do the tires last that long for some of these trucks?
With the track temperature as high as it is, I don't think so. I think these Goodyear tires are going to be used up before that. So I'm going to start thinking we may see some drivers perhaps try to pit maybe around the halfway mark if they can reach it, Justin. If they can get to maybe, say, lap 100, then they know they can make it on fuel the rest of the way because they've just done it, but they're able to get those tires off and get some fresh rubber. But a question for that, if they do that, Justin, is would that be too early for the tires?
Yeah, that's the main thing. You don't want to end up also getting pinned if there's a caution flag, a lap down. Of note, Carl Burke has also called to tonight. He has now joined the DNF list, make it 3 total trucks after he parked his truck in the past 2 laps. But very thick traffic ahead of Dan West Jr. at the moment. They nearly make contact for the position in front of him for 15th position. Able to get by Tom Green, the 16th place truck, but Maine's got a huge shot just in front of the leader last time by in 1 and 2.
Yeah, Ryan Maines in the 13 going the wrong way as he started up in the top 10. He is now the last car, or truck rather, on the lead lap in 15th position. Ryan Maines, we're used to seeing that 13 have some strong runs, uncharacteristic run for Ryan Maines here after a typical qualifying effort for the 13 inside the top 10 with a little bit of a buffer, but something is not going right on that 13 truck as he is in trouble of going a lap down right now. Tom Green is making his truck series debut, has gone a lap down, first truck 1 lap down. Here comes West to the inside of Ryan Maines, and a guy up next, Dan Lowther, he was worried about this race, Justin. He did not like the setup that he had under that 63 truck in practice earlier this week, and he did not get the amount of laps that he wanted tonight in that number 63. Well, I should say this week leading up to this race, and he was worried about it. Here he is in trouble of going a lap down. The 63 truck of Dan Lowther, last car on the lead lap right now in 14th position.
Yeah, running in the 23 threes. The leader's running 23 twos. Not just about a tenth of a second difference, yes. But that time adds up the longer the run goes at a race such as this, and a track such as this. And there he goes, Lowther letting by the race leader this time by. Make it now just 13 trucks remaining on the lead lap for the time being with 143 laps to go. All of this is still shuffling around that interval between the leader you see on the left side of your screen. It's also been getting dicey for about second on back still with the traffic because that's where Maines has really still been trying to maintain as much time as he can for that position battle we were talking about for 15th. At the same time, not making it easy for the lead trucks to get through to him, or by him rather.
And that's the problem here. It's kind of a danged if you do, danged if you don't type thing because, yes, you're holding up the leaders if you're racing them too hard, but at the end of the day, you're still racing for position with those 2 trucks behind you. So Ryan Maines kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place in that particular spot. Behind them, the battle for third beginning to heat up again between Anderson and Stab now, but you got to feel for those drivers who are kind of in that position where they might, or they
had contact in this battle we were just looking at. They just had contact you seen in 3 and 4. Stabno had to check up hard and slam the back end of Anderson after Anderson nearly lost the back end of his truck in 1 and 2. Now Stabno has front nose damage from that contact, Greg, and has already lost 4 or 5 truck lengths as a result.
Remember, 2 straight wins on the season for Jeff Stabnow entering tonight. 2 wins on the year in the Truck Series, back-to-back, Charlotte and Michigan, and was coming through the field at a nice pace in that 24, but now has his work cut out for him. As you see right there, the amount of ground lost to Caden Anderson, trying to reel it back in now. But that number 24, that quest for 3 straight just got a lot harder with that damage.
Yeah, remember, has the faster pair in pocket, but still needs to, at the very least, make it another 38 plus laps to get to halfway to make it on fuel the rest of the way to be able to go for the pit stop. Trouble in front of them. Caution flag has not come out on the bottom of the track between mains and green. Now does come out for this.
And remember, that was that battle we were talking about, the battle for position, which had turned into the battle for the lucky dog. And Maines just bobbled there a little bit and overcorrected, and unfortunately Tom Green nowhere to go.
Took a few seconds for the caution flag to trigger as that was just under the yellow line, but man, does that shake things up. A few drivers, bit of a sigh of relief. Others, they're in panic mode since we have now 5+ trucks 1 lap down in the process of this race so far.
And the 2 trucks that were trying to battle for the lucky dog position going around there, Dan Loudner will receive the lucky dog, I believe, in the number 63. So that'll bring us back to 14 trucks on the lead lap. But Justin, here's my question to you. Too early to pit, or do you come in and take the 4 tires now?
I think everyone's taking the 4 tires. The question is going to be how you play it after this for the race strategy, since there's 136 to go and still 16 laps out of the fuel window to make it to the end. Everybody indeed does come down on the lead lap for 4 tires and fuel here, Greg.
So here they come, led by the 55 of Dan West Jr., who's led every single one of the 64 laps on the board so far. They pull into their pit stalls, and the crews begin to go to work, and we'll keep an eye on how these guys go. Right side's going up. Here come the left sides. So Justin, 65 laps currently being worked right now. Working lap 65. Boy, Caden Anderson able to get out ahead of Chris White there. Anderson with a big jump out of his pit stall.
Had a 0.2 of a second quicker stop, but here's the important part. 1.5 seconds quicker in the lane. And one of the things where qualifying comes to key is, if you have a pit box right where you start entering turn 1, there's a little bit of a kink for your pit boxes, and that allows you to be able to gain some extra time to be able to maneuver your way straight into those boxes instead of having to swerve on down into a straight line pit box in the middle of the front stretch.
Yeah, it's one of the advantages here of a track shaped like Richmond, a track layout, if you will. And with that with that entry in the pit lane, makes it a little bit easier on these drivers, as the trucks who were not on the lead lap are finishing up their service now. Dan West Jr. continues to lead. Caden Anderson in second. Chris White back in third. We're waiting for the rest of the field to cycle through. Looks like, I believe, the 24 of Stabnow will be fourth, as a couple of trucks may not have pitted the first time to try to gain some track position.
Yeah, Johnson and Doyle did stay out the first time around, came down the second time in the pit window as everyone lines up behind the official iRacing pace car. 2 to go. And as you can see, Doyle just now catching up to the field. It's about 13th position. 14 trucks now in the lead lap. At this point, how do you play this as a driver? Because you're still outside the fuel window, but anything can happen now that everybody's back on fresh sticker tires, on cold tires, and it can get very slick here.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, especially with the fact that we're still outside the fuel window. I'm very curious to see how these drivers play this restart. I'm thinking maybe some drivers were expecting to go one stop if they could stay green, but with the caution coming out on the lap it did, with how much abuse the tires had on this run, they were put in the box that they had to pit. So I'm curious to see now what driver strategies will be moving forward in this case.
1 to go until the restart. Dan West Jr. is the leader after pit stops. Anderson second, Chris White, Jeff Stabnow, Bill Ross Jr. your top 5. Devin West in P number 6. O'Hare, King, Ottenbacher, Grande amongst the top 10 trucks. for this upcoming start. 132 laps to go from Richmond Raceway in this 200-lap, 150-mile race. We'll see if Dan West Jr. can grow the gap he had the last run of more than 2+ seconds. Pace car about to move off the track. West Jr. in control of the field. Goes for the earlier launch. Green flag is back up. We're racing again at Richmond. Good launch for Anderson on the outside.
But remember, Anderson has the damage from the contact with Stabnow and the contact to the wall earlier. Does not slow him down at all in the 37 as he is right there with Dan West Jr. hanging with them. Ooh, Tyler King in the 44 man off the wall behind him as he looks to bounce off the wall a little bit back there and he falls in behind O'Hare. West Jr. sells back into the lead. Anderson second. White Stabnow. And look who has climbed his way up into the top 5. Devin West into number 5. Started 21st on the night, up into the top 5 on lap 70.
Your biggest mover of the race so far, plus 16 for the first time inside the top 5. That caution flag may have became a blessing because he was working so hard to cut through the field before, was starting to lose a few tenths a lap on the leaders after using up a lot of its tires in the short run and trying to cut his way through several dozen trucks.
Yeah, West has really been coming through the field nicely, and he hasn't been pushing it too hard either, Justin. Like you mentioned, he's been waiting and biding his time with each move. He's been wearing them out and thinking about it. Very methodical approach. Caution is out.
Caution flag is out. It's Dana Rogers again. The caution came out to allow him to take the faster pair. Avoids damage, though, after contact with mains into turn 3.
I'm lucky that he was able to avoid damage there, Justin, but unfortunately now we're starting to see the caution-free caution situation that we've seen arise with short tracks, and we see it in this series not as much as the Cup Series, but we do see it here, and it looks like it's starting to creep up again. And I don't expect to see anyone on pit road here, as I believe it's still a little bit too early on this particular run, but we got to keep an eye on when they reach that lap 80 mark, because that'll put them in the fuel window on one more stop if they can get to that stage.
We'll see how this all plays out. Caution flag is out on the track. You're watching the Northwest Truck Series live on LSR TV for the virtual Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Under the caution flag with 127 laps to go in this 200-lap race, Justin Prince, Greg Rentz alongside with you with Will DeBow in the director's seat for tonight's action here on LSR TV. It's been an entertaining one so far, Greg. Your thoughts on what we've seen so far here at Richmond?
I've liked what I've seen out of the drivers right around 2nd through 5th, per se. Caden Anderson, Chris White, Jeff Stabnow, and we'll throw Bill Ross Jr. in there as well, as Devin West was able to get past them into the top 5. But I've liked what I've seen out of them. Very respectful racing with each other. They've been faster than each other in certain aspects of the race. Like for a couple of laps, Chris White was the fastest one. Then it was Bill Ross, and then Caden Anderson, Stabnow. When they are the fastest, the others recognize it, and they're giving them the space to go ahead, and they are able to capitalize. And in turn, we're seeing that favor return when the opposite is in effect, and the drivers behind them are faster once again. So I've liked what I've seen out of those guys with how respectful they are being. I've liked the charge we've seen out of Devin West, Stephen O'Hare doing it as well, staying solid. Another solid run for Tyler King. I'm curious to see how it goes the rest of the race, but so far I've been very impressed with the amount of respect these drivers are showing.
Yeah, a lot of give and take so far in this event tonight for the most part, as still under the caution with 2 to go until the restart here. Once again, a couple things to keep in mind. We've mentioned one of the biggest movers, Devin West, plus 16. Stabnow with a fast repairing bank. But as well, a couple other drivers that have quietly been running through this field is Cameron Doyle. We talked about him in the 170 before a little bit. He's been having a top 10 run so far tonight, Greg, in his truck.
Yeah, Cameron Doyle, we talked about that. Not a lot of starts in that number 170, but a very solid performance out of him. Started 7th, up in 10th right now. Lost 3 spots, but a very solid performance for the young Wenatchee, Washington driver.
Just made it 20 laps in his series debut at Michigan. You were talking about that race earlier on before he DNF'd in that action. Finished in the 20s at the drop of the checkered flag. 1 to go on the restart. To reset, West Jr. Anderson in row 1, White Stabno row 2, West Ross Jr. row 3, O'Hare starts off in the top 8 along with Ottenbacher, Kane, and Doyle amongst the top 10 trucks as well. Been entertaining so far. Dan West Jr. has led a majority of the laps tonight. Can he keep the clean air on the drop of the green flag? Well, to find out. Last time had a decent jump in turn 4. Pace car is off. West Jr. much earlier launch, back on her way from Richmond.
That was a more typical West Jr. launch than the last one. Anderson not able to keep with him as strong there. But here he is, able to close down on Chris White for second. Look at Devin West able to get to the inside of Jeff Stabnow. Stabnow currently hung on the outside right now, as he doesn't have much help behind him. And now Bill Ross Jr. ducks in behind. And Stabnow, a little bit of contact with Chris White. That pushes him way up the track. And Stephen O'Hare got loose trying to get through as well.
Trouble behind them. Ottenbacher just got turned. Ottenbacher slides in the grass. No caution off the racing surface. This is why you'll see on the replay. And I think got a mix of help and got loose at the same time in the battle with Kane. No caution because that was off the racing surface though, Greg.
And he was just able to keep it on the racing surface, and that's unfortunate for him.
Oh, truck this spinning on the track this time. Chisholm hard into the fence. And now his front nose destroyed in the 25 to finally bring out the caution flag.
That's what John Ottenbacher needed right there, because now he's going to be able to pit under yellow and not lose a lap. That is a big break there for John Ottenbacher. You knew he had to be upset that the caution did not come out, but that's going to be big for Ottenbacher to stay on. But boy, Adam Chisholm's bad night continues.
Exact same spot as Ottenbacher in his battle with King. Difference is this time, Chisholm tried to correct it back to the right and just slammed hard into that outside safer barrier.
So Adam Chisholm, tough break for him. You see right there the difference, though, of what happens when you just let the truck do its thing as opposed to trying to fight it in a situation like that, Justin. And Ottenbacher kind of letting it slide there. While, yes, he lost a little bit more time and did take the spin, he was able to keep it relatively clean, and now he's going to be able to keep a clean race truck and pit now. A little bit of right rear damage on the 89, and you would have to expect him to come to pit road here. Yes, here he comes for 4 fresh tires. So we might be in a situation now where Ottenbacher might be able to gain some ground. And lap number 81, Justin, he is in the fuel window now by 1 lap to make it to the end should this thing go green the rest of the way. You think he might try to make it the rest of the way now and just hope and pray for the best? Or do you think he's going to hope for another caution and get himself back on sequence with the rest of them?
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to stretch it forward, if not topped off in extra time. Off and away goes Ottenbacher. Maines is the lucky dog this time. 16 trucks on the lead lap. Surprised no one else thought about coming down there, but as we've seen on the short tracks, track position is very vital, and no one was willing to sacrifice it except for Ottenbacher to get that damage repaired, and essentially anyone that is a lap down still running on the track.
Ryan Maines will go back on the lead lap here, I believe, in the number 13. Remember, he was caught up in the incident that brought out the previous caution. 16 trucks now on the lead lap. And again, we're seeing it now. Cautions are beginning to breed cautions here, Justin, more and more. Adam Chisholm has retired from the race, so a long day for the 25, and Chisholm just cutting his losses. Remember, he had already used the fast repair after the lap 1 incident and losing the motor around lap 20 or so. So Chisholm, a long day goes bad, even worse for him. Back up front, still Dan West Jr. leading the way, has led every lap so far. Caden Anderson will restart again to his outside, but a new contender up in the third spot. He started in 21st position. It's Devin West.
And these cautions have, again, really been helping out West. He's been on the preferred line the past couple restarts. Now he's got the track position. Do you think he's got the same pace as his dad, though, in the West Racing Machine?
We will see. You know that the 55 and the 5 are running very similar, if not the same setup. So the 55 and the 5, two very fast trucks, as always. But Devin West, now we're going to see if he does have the pace. We haven't seen the true test of it yet because he got mired so far back in the field in qualifying that he had to work his way through traffic. On practice times, he was up near the top. As he going back and looking at practice times, he was around 7th in practice, right behind his father Dan, who was quickest, not far off at all. So Devin West has the speed tonight. We just haven't really been able to see him showcase it per se, as he's been kind of mired back in traffic. Now we're really going to see what the 5 truck has.
1 to go until the restart. Once again, West Jr., Anderson, Devin West, Chris White, Bill Ross Jr., Jeff Stabnow in the top 6 in the first 3 rows. O'Hare and Doyle row 4. Rondé and King in row number 5. Pace car off once again. This time West Jr. stacking up the box. Later jump, green flag is out, making it hard to predict when he goes on the green flag, Greg.
And that's what you got to do. We saw that a while ago. Or I saw it in another race, actually, that I broadcast on another channel a few weeks ago at Martinsville. The restarts were becoming so unpredictable because the race leader would go at different times and not let himself get predictable to that truck starting outside of him. And I like that move by Dan West Jr. to go on different times throughout the course of the race and keep those guys behind him guessing. I like the move there by Dan West Jr. But Caden Anderson was able to hang with them on this one. Although stuck on the outside, here comes Devin to the inside. Started 21st position, looking for 2nd.
Side by side for P2. Anderson tries to get the squeeze. Devin West, a bit of a bobble. Still side by side. Devin West, though, with the better straight line speed. Nearly locks up the brakes, though, on corner entry. Had a bit of wheel hop. Nearly bobbled him up the racetrack. Still gets clear off of turn 2.
West, that's the first real time that he's had to fight the truck all day. Here he is up in 2nd now. That 5 car or truck, I don't know how many times he's going to make that mistake, is very, very strong right now. 6/10 of a second now off of his father Dan in the 55. We will see how it goes through the remainder of this race. Coming up here on halfway, about 10 more laps before we reach the halfway mark. Justin, as Anderson continues in 3rd. Anderson, from the sounds of it, not too happy with the way his truck was handling before this race started, but looks like whatever gremlins might have been haunting the 37 seem to have gone away for now, as he's now under pressure for the 83 of Chris White. That is for 3rd.
Thing is, he's got a different type of gremlins. The track position gremlins. Chris White trying to move to the bottom of the racetrack for P3. Bit close that time on corner exit, but still fall behind Bill Ross Jr. Anderson's been trying very hard to make that top line work when he's been stuck up there. But the problem is right here where he has to get off the gas so much because if he keeps his foot in it, he's either snapping loose or slamming that wall.
That's a product of being on the outside for too long. Chris White able to get around him in the 83. Back behind them, look at the move by Stephen O'Hare on Bill Ross Jr. to try to break back into the top 5 for the first time tonight. O'Hare has been very quietly making his way through the field. We've talked about him a couple times, but this is the first time we've seen him up here in the top 5 as he's to the inside of Ross. In front of them, Anderson going back after Chris White for 2nd. And O'Hare able to clear Ross, bringing Stabnow with him, and now setting his sights on this battle between Anderson and White in front of him. And you know that he's got to love seeing these two going side-by-side racing, because that's allowing him to pull right up on him.
Still a bit of side-by-side as well with Stabnow and Bill Ross Jr. O'Hare trying to move to the bottom side. White now side-by-side with 41 truck. That's side-by-side for 4th position. White gives up the spot. Ross Jr. in the wall. Able to get it unstuck, but lost at least several positions in the 17 right as that pass happened for O'Hare.
Yeah, he lost quite a few positions. That's going to drop him outside of the top 10 Maybe that'll drop him to the 11th position behind Brett Johnson once it's all said and done. We'll confirm that as he crosses the strike here. I believe he will be in the 11th position.
P10.
And nope, P10. So was able to stay in the top 10, but definitely going to make his day a lot harder, as we were talking about the speed that he has shown in the last couple of weeks, and not just the Truck Series, but the Cup Series as well. And taking a high line there through turn 3 and 4, Justin. So maybe the 17, the damage on it causing him to maybe not be as comfortable going into the corner as we saw earlier. Remember, he was taking the higher line earlier, but it seems like he's even higher than he was earlier in this one.
Yeah, and mind you, the track is still not cooled off too much. Losing a bit of touch to the grouping in front, which has grown pretty big behind Anderson. Anderson drifted in front of the whole field in third. Now O'Hare trying to take advantage, sends it on in, takes away P3. Anderson's truck has just turned snap-a-loose on some of these corner exits and has really stacked up the field. They've lost 2 seconds to the west.
Remember, Anderson, contact behind Chris White and Jeff Stabnow. Caution is out. White coming to a stop in turn 4. That was contact with Stabnow, and Stabnow facing the wrong way on the one-way as well.
And let's take a look at this. As appears Chris White moved off the bottom. Stabnow tried to paint the yellow line, made contact. King gets collected in the aftermath as well with a stack up between 4 trucks.
And that's another tough break for Tyler King in the 44 so many times this season, not just in the trucks, but in the Cup cars as well. Tyler King has had such great runs going, and something happens that puts him behind the 8 ball. And here it is once again. Someone else got in the back of Tyler King. It might have been the 170 of Cameron Doyle.
It was.
Doyle's got some heavy front damage on the 170, so a good run for Cameron Doyle might have just gone sour as well. He's staying out there. He might actually be in good shape for the fast repair. As well, Tyler King, as it looks like King was able to maybe get his spot back. We'll see what the officials decide on this, but Tyler King, Cameron Doyle, fast repairs are in play here, and if Tyler King was able to get his spot back, that could be huge.
Can confirm fast repair used by King. White banking his, Doyle as well in the same boat. Stabnow, however, did have to use his since it was his 3rd bit of contact in this race alone. This is the time to bring up the incident count, and this may come up for a couple drivers who are just in that stack up or have had track position. If you receive 16 incident points, you get a drive-through penalty. A couple competitors who are just at an incident, including Stabnow, now on that watch. If you do have that happen, that will mean potentially losing at least a lap, and by the way, end of longest line penalties, so you can properly serve your penalty without impeding the process of fellow drivers.
Let's see how it all unfolds. Halfway this time by here at Richmond Raceway. Lap 100 on the chart. It'll be lap 101 when they come around. Dan West Jr. has led all 100 of them so far. Devin West in second. Stephen O'Hare, how about the 41 car? We've mentioned him a couple times charging through the field, but that number 41 truck has climbed up onto the podium for now, Justin. A great run so far for Stephen O'Hare, the Keep Oregon Well truck.
You talked about keep an eye on him. He's been given good reasons to do so here, just past halfway in the race to reset your top 10. Dan West Jr., Devin West, Stephen O'Hare, Caden Anderson, Tyler King, Brett Johnson, Bill Ross Jr., James Thurston, Roy Grande, John Ottenbacher, rounding up the top 10. As mentioned, West, Devin West, a plus 19. Thurston and Grande, a plus 10 tonight. Everybody else has either gone to where they started the races, gone up a couple single-digit positions, or have lost 12 positions, such as Chris White in those incidents we just seen here. So now everyone can make it in the fuel window, Greg, and this is where it can get pretty interesting. If we get cautions, precautions, this may trigger several different strategies the rest of the way.
And we've seen it develop so far after that long green flag run. I believe our longest run since then has been around the 10 to 12 lap margin since that long green flag run earlier in the day. So this is really beginning to impede on some drivers here. So we will see how it all unfolds here in this one. And I'm very curious to see the strategy, and of course, got to keep my eye on the 89 of John Ottenbacher, who's restarting in 10th. Remember, he's on fresher tires than our leaders by about 20 laps or so, and he can theoretically go the distance on fuel if he felt so inclined.
Remember, there was the caution flag and everyone just came down. Dan West Jr. off and away, leaves everybody in the dust. His son Devin completely caught sleeping.
Devin did not get a good restart there. The guy who did get a good restart per se would be the 41 of O'Hare. Wow, did you see Tyler King? Oh, big slide. He's not done it. He's in the ball.
Caution flag is out. 4, 5, 6 trucks stack up like Lincoln logs. Stabnow's in it. Man, a lot of fast trucks now potentially out of contention after this.
Tyler King just used the fast repair in the 44, and now he's got damage all over again. That could be the end of his night. Same with the 24 of Stabnow, as he had just used the fast repair as well. Chris White, the 83, one of the fastest trucks in town in the early stages of this race, up as high as second several times. A lot of damage to the 83. So, like you mentioned, some very, very fast trucks in this one.
That was about 4th, 5th on back that were just collected. A couple drivers pitting Lowther along with Thurston, but now that takes Stabnow out of the equation since he's now got significant damage. That streak of 2 straight victories now done potentially. On the bright side, if you're a Chris White fan, he did bank his fast repair and manually repaired his damage after the last caution, but still, now you've got a lot of drivers who remember have had to use them early, who have really significantly damaged their trucks. Still, 95 laps to go this time by. We'll take a quick break. You're watching LSR TV, live from the virtual Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
We're based out of West Monroe, Louisiana. We do custom T-shirts, racing. We'll do any shirt. We'll do schools, churches, fundraisers. We do a ton of event shirts, as you can see on our board here, all around our banner. Personalized. I mean, we'll do anything. It doesn't matter to us. We got the custom rugs. We use all the, top quality shirts, inks and everything. Hoodies, hats. We do embroidered hats, embroidered shirts. Just you can call us for anything. We do offer the bag and fold to where you can receive them and they're already labeled and tagged and bagged, ready to give out to your customer and stuff. So you can just call us and just tell us, hey, this is what we're looking at doing, and if we're going to put the car on there, it is 125 quantity minimum. If it's without the car, it's 60 quantity minimum. That's strictly on the racing stuff. If it's a business or something, if you race on Texas shirts, it's a little bit differently. You can call us. It just depends on your quantity and ink colors. Everything is hand drawn. I mean, everything. We don't Photoshop anything onto a shirt or anything like that. Everything that we go through, everything is drawn, and which is the reason for the art fees. We do have several graphic artists that draw for us, and they're really good. So what we do is on any package that you do, we can mix and match. We can do any colors. You can do purple, red, blue, green, and do the rest black. It doesn't matter to us. With your design on there, we can do hoodies. We can do hoodies, long sleeve shirts, T-shirts, tank tops. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's almost limitless what you can do, and you can.
Welcome back, everyone, to Richmond Raceway as we get ready to go back under green after a significant incident collected Tyler King, Jeff Stabnow, Brett Johnson, amongst others, who had just moments ago, and some of those competitors just used the fast repair they had on the prior caution. Dan West Jr., Stephen O'Hare leads up the green flag, 92 to go from Richmond.
Good restart again from the 55 of Dan West Jr. Look at O'Hare, though, having to fight off Devin West in the 5. And Anderson way up the track into the 37, looking to spot his way back into the top 5 after all these incidents. Bill Ross Jr. back up in the top 5 all of a sudden. He almost slides up into Anderson there, just barely able to keep it off. Ottenbacher now up in the 6th after his problems earlier.
Getting a little bit dicey now for some of those spots, to say the very least, in the braking markers. But absolutely, Ottenbacher's done a decent job keeping that truck clean in these past 20, 30-plus laps since his caution flag situation. Now, the curious thing's going to be here, with the cloud cover starting to form up, you may notice with the shade starting to build up, how this track responds with the caution flags and had cooled down a little bit. And O'Hare letting Anderson go, in fact, on the outside line as that happened.
So Anderson able to get back up into 3rd now in that number 37. Stephen O'Hare has lost 2 spots so far since this green flag fell. And remember, Anderson does still have that damage on the right side of his truck, seeing it mainly on the right rear with a little bit of right front damage as well from the contact earlier. So Anderson, yes, the damage is there, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him a whole lot. If this was on a bigger track like a Charlotte or a Michigan, that would be bad news bears, but Anderson doing a great job considering all the stuff that's happened to him so far today.
Speaking of different references such as that, one of the drivers to give a shout out to, P12 at the moment, currently in the Hornet's Nest right up the road for the top 10. That's where right up front. That's Gray Fournier driving a Rockstar Red Dead Redemption truck. Have you ever played Red Dead Redemption at all?
Myself, no, but several of my friends have.
Interesting enough. Absolutely. At the same time, you don't want to end up having to deal with some of the storylines of Red Dead Redemption on the racetrack tonight in terms of avoiding your fellow enemies.
Yeah, I've heard some bad things can happen to your horse in that game, and if something happens to your horse in this case, definitely bad news.
Absolutely. So currently up 10 positions, does have a bit of damage to deal with of note. Up note as well, the battle for the lead, down to about a couple tenths of a second. That's where father and son are looking to scrap. Devin West currently the faster truck at the moment by a couple 100ths. But Dad West Jr. has the advantage of clean air and is saving, it appears, on his entries.
So now this is the first time that we really get to see the Wests test each other out right now, as they're about a second ahead of Caden Anderson. And there you see, like you mentioned there, West Jr. a little bit of a different entry than his son Devin. Let's see who's faster at the line this time by. And it was Devin that ran the quicker lap that time. So Devin beginning to really put the pressure on, but don't look now. Here comes the 37 in 3rd.
Yeah, Anderson slowly creeping his way on up. Check that, fastly creeping up. Absolutely bonsai to the entry that time and gained 2 truck lengths.
Yeah, great job there by Anderson closing in on this battle. So suddenly the father-son duel that has been shaping up seemingly all night is going to be interrupted by Caden Anderson in the 37. Stephen O'Hare in 4th, but here comes Caden with a charge there on Devin West. We might see the 37 making a move for 2nd before too long.
Track seems to be finally flowing his direction. Does have the help of a spotter for tonight's race and a crew chief to help assist with his setup this evening. The adjustments that truck has made have worked and nearly slid his way to the inside wall. Still holds on to the track position though.
Great save by Anderson to keep it together there. But it is going to cost him a little bit of time as he loses a 1/10 of a second that time. Oh, Devin taking a higher line this time than we've seen out of him in the last few laps. And that allows Anderson to pull right up on him. They're pulling away meanwhile from Stephen O'Hare. Here comes Anderson once again, taking a peek to the inside. 2 of the former top dogs and legends of Northwest Racing currently riding 2nd and 3rd, and they've gone totally different career paths. Devin West moving into the dirt modified ranks, following in the footsteps of his father Dan. Caden stepping into the asphalt late model series ranks in the pro late model. So 2 very different real life disciplines of racing going at it for 2nd right now.
Still, Devin West can't get a run on his father. Caden Anderson still hasn't been able to poke his way to the bottom side. At this point, again, we talked about it can take multiple laps to set up a pass. How do you play this if you're Anderson? because it seems like he's been aggressive on the entries. Now that he's in the back end of the trucks in front of him, though, he can't bonsai it like he had been doing to close up this gap.
Yeah, and that's what you're seeing right now with a little bit of a slide perhaps from the 37 that time. But that's what you're seeing when you have all that space in front of you as opposed to when you're on the doorstep of another truck, as these three are right now single file, nose to tail. You could throw a blanket over the three of them, as Devin really putting the pressure on. And Devin's kind of the one who's having the hardest time right now. He's the one stuck in the middle because he can't go anywhere from the 55, but he can't back off to try it again, as this is going to happen. The 37 of Anderson is going to get to the inside, so Wes was kind of stuck there. Couldn't make a move on Dan, but couldn't back off to cool his tires because that was going to happen. Caden Anderson back to second.
Now the true test begins now as Caden Anderson looks to try and take away the lead from Dan West Jr. Dan has led a majority of the laps tonight, just about every single one of the 124 completed. With 75 to go, Anderson with his best chance to take the lead was 0.2 of a second quicker before he reached the back end of Devin West. This time cannot close up the gap as much, currently about 0.4 seconds at the moment. In fact, was just a couple 100ths quicker that time. All that scrapping too slowly allowed O'Hare and Ross Jr. to close back in by a couple truck lengths each lap.
Yeah, O'Hare and Ross creeping up in this one. O'Hare, again, such a solid run for the Keep Oregon Well Chevy in fourth, the 41. Such a run for O'Hare here. Started in 12th. We've been keeping such an eye on Devin West and his charge from the back that Stephen O'Hare very quietly has been making his way up through the field, and it's been spectacular to watch. Stephen O'Hare has really done a great job. The Texas winner looking solid again, and this is typical of Stephen O'Hare to have a very solid run through the middle stages and put himself in a position to be there at the end. We've seen that out of him several times. It's resulted in quite a few top fives, and looking like another one beginning to shape up for O'Hare. Behind him, Bill Ross Jr. had a little bit of a problem earlier, smacked the wall, fell out of the top 5, almost out of the top 10. He has recovered nicely and to get back up into the top 5 with a little bit of racer's luck on his side. Another solid outing for the 17.
And don't forget about the next man on the pylon. Chris White used the faster pair. Had to roll his truck into the pit box just to be able to use it after his engine went fully kaput down the lane. He's already charged up to 6th position after that. So he's slowly but surely creeping back on up. He is about a 10th or so quicker than O'Hare and Ross Jr., mind you, on the track.
Yeah, Chris White, and it's only his 3rd start of the season in the Truck Series, but he's been a competitor in and out on the Cup Series all year long. And a couple of Xfinity wins last year, he may have caught the wall. If not, definitely slid off of turn number 2 there. But Chris White, always in the mix and in the conversation when he is in the race. Remember, he came up but just 1/100th short of a Cup Series win at Kansas earlier this year to Sean Brightsman. He was not in the field tonight. And ever since then, Chris White has really been doing very, very well in every single one of his starts. But remember, he switched from Chevy to Ford in the Cup Series. Hasn't been able to do that because the Ford truck is not available just yet, but I believe the next time the series is action, the Ford truck will be available. Perhaps we might see Chris White make the switch over here too and be one of the debut drivers for Ford in this series.
Yeah, good point to bring up with the Ford F-150 finally coming to the iRacing surface. A few of my fellow teammates personally were jumping for joy when they seen the Ford finally making its way with their truck into competition in iRacing. Will we see you in a Ford? Is another important question.
I don't know. I have typically always been a Chevy guy, with the fact that my favorite manufacturer, Dodge, is not included in any of the NASCAR series anymore, especially on iRacing. I've always been the Chevy guy.
Right now, White Chevy has been rolling along. A fellow Chevy, John Ottenbacher. He's been slipping and sliding on some of the corner exits, especially off turn 2, but has been able to maintain P7. Right now, the trucks behind him, though, some are for position, some are not. Johnson is currently a buffer truck to the next position, Roy Grande, at the moment.
And Roy Grande, we haven't talked about him a lot in the number 18, but remember, he had that career best finish a second at Bristol a few weeks back. He is up in the top 10 after starting 19th. The new look seems to really be paying dividends for that number 18, and I gotta say, that is one of the coolest looking trucks that we have seen in the series this year.
That's the Reps for Vets truck tonight. That's repforvets22.com, which is an apparel company for vets gear that is veteran owned and operated, with 5% of the proceeds from every order going to veteran nonprofits. Good to see him represent that company on the truck tonight, Greg.
Absolutely. We're so used to seeing Taco Bell on the number 18. We've actually began calling him that, but a brand new look on the 18 with a great message on it as well, and a very, very good performance from Roy Grande tonight in 8th position after starting 19th. Remember, his career best finish came a second at Bristol.
Yeah,
that's a short track. Richmond, short track. Seems like Roy Grande may have found a niche this season on the short tracks.
Absolutely has found a decent niche, as still remember Johnson still the buffer truck between him and P7 and John Ottenbacher. Johnson 18th, currently 3 laps down after he had to take the tow truck after his respective incident. Still though, coming to 61 to go this time by, and as all of this is still shuffled around, Anderson is still kept within range for the race lead. Currently making their way out of turn 4, still has kept it about 3/4 of a second. Much better of the best run, in fact, I think, tonight for Anderson overall in the long run.
And wow, what a jump there into turn number 1. How much ground did he gain? And with lap traffic beginning to fill the bumper, and look who that is. I believe that's Jeff Stabnow, who came in with 2 wins in a row coming into this race in 3 straight poles. Both those streaks will end tonight. But Anderson had such a good run there through 1 and 2, but West was able to gain it back in 3 and 4. We'll see if the lap truck of Stabnow plays a role. No, he's going to move over and let them go. But I am so impressed with these 2 drivers and the respect that they've all shown this season. And remember, they were talking before the race. They were kind of chatting.
Oh, caution
is out.
Back straight away, and it just so happens to be where we were talking about that 7th and 8th buffer truck. Brett Johnson missed the bottom. Roy Grande took advantage. Johnson is the truck who goes around on the back straightaway for the caution flag, Greg.
See what happens. Brett Johnson in the 7. Remember, he used the fast repair already. Does have some damage after the contact with Grande.
It was on the exit of 1 and 2 after he missed the bottom last time by. Got hit in the left rear, and Grande ended up making that contact. And now everybody comes down the pit lane as a result with the caution flag here for the fresh tires. Now again, it gets fairly interesting from here because another short run, and Anderson was blistering quick last short run.
So pit stops beginning, and yeah, like you mentioned, Caden Anderson, a lot of speed on the short run. But Justin, this opens the door for another window. Is this the last pit stop?
Well, the thing is, again, here, very hot track. Do you even risk it with the older tires for even a few laps? Remains to be seen, but West Jr., Anderson, top 2 out. It was a drag race for 3rd spot, but O'Hare does get the preferred bottom line. Devin West, for the first time in about 100 laps or so, will have to start on the top line when the green flag flies. Ross Jr., Chris White, the top 6. Currently scored in 7th position at the moment, and back on the lead lap, though, with the caution flag is Tom Green. He's coming in for his scheduled stop now, but Green is now back on the lead lap after being involved in that caution flag in the first quarter of the race.
Making his debut in this series tonight in the Simpsons entry, the bright pink truck, impossible to miss, on the number 77. So it has been an up and down race for him, and it's good to see him back on the lead lap here, Justin.
Yeah, taking reference to Mr. Sparkle tonight. By the way, it's now available at your local Quickie Mart. To find your local Quickie Mart, search on Google for about 16 hours straight. With that, still, about when we get back to green, about 54 laps to go, see how that Simpsons truck does.
we'll see. He will restart at the tail end of the lead lap as he made his pit stop, but it's been a very impressive showing for him in that number 77. Will be in the 15th position here when this is all said and done. And Justin, looking at the lineup, there is no truck currently being scored 1 lap down. The next truck in line for the Lucky Dog will be Jeff Stabnow 2 laps down in the 24th.
So he ends up being the lucky dog in this situation, but here's again the problem for Stabnow. He was down 8 miles an hour at the end of the straightaways when some of the leaders were reaching him right before that caution flag, and he dropped that extra lap. So he's kind of in a box now where that engine damage, he's not going to be able to cover all of it. When he cautions after caution after caution just to be able to fix the truck.
That's a product of having to use the fast repair, and then immediately after getting caught up in an incident like that he did, which it did several rounds of damage to that number 24 truck. Mired in 16th position, 2 laps down, Jeff Stabnow. So such a tough day for him though, after coming in with 2 straight wins on the year, to be put in a position like this. Tough break for him. But Justin, we're getting set to restart this race with just over 50 laps to go. Dan West Jr. has led all 145 laps thus far, but feeling the heat from Caden Anderson, Stephen O'Hare up in 3rd.
Pace car is off. This time West Jr. stacks the box, back off, and away we go. Great launch for Anderson. Gets clear to get single file for the top 2. Everybody else side by side.
O'Hare, oh, big bobble from Devin West. Big bobble from Devin West, and that's going to cost him several positions.
How in the world did he save it is a big question. Bucker with a shot, contact in front. Big crash on the bottom of the racetrack. No caution. No one went around a full 90 degrees. Lowther is in it. Grande's in it. We're still green.
Ottenbacher got the worst of it in the 89, as he has a lot of damage on the left rear of the truck. Checking in on the 63 of Lowther, significant front damage. Roy Grande was involved in that as well. Man, oh man, that entire thing just got turned on its head. That all started with Devin West's big slide to turn 1.
Tough incident there after the contact. And 3-4 trouble now for Ross Jr. Ross Jr. spins around, slams the wall in 1 and 2, and now we get a caution.
And one guy who did not want to see the caution was Caden Anderson. He had gotten a run on Dan West Jr. Anderson was about half a truck behind him. He was to the door of the 55, so Anderson did not want to see that. But what happened here with the 17?
We talked about the difficulties he's been having to get to the bottom at times tonight. Completely missed it and snapped around running on the middle line, Greg.
And that's a lot of damage to the back of the 17, and such a strong run for Bill Ross Jr. And unfortunate that it might end up this way. He should still have the fast repair in the bank, but it's going to be hard pressed to gain all that ground back.
Here's who was also signing a bit of relief at the timing of the yellow flag. Everyone in the back half of the field who had to check up for the last incident. Yes, some of them have significant back end and front end damage that have used fast repairs from prior incidents. But if there wasn't a caution there, they had lost 3-4 seconds alone after the stack up in 3 and 4.
So definitely interesting to see how this one will unfold. Yes, that's such a shame for Bill Ross Jr. in the 17. Another great run ended like this. Gonna take the fast repair on pit road, 4 fresh tires, and he will restart at the back. And with less than 50 laps to go, that's going to be a tall order.
Able to come off and away from the pit lane, and Ross Jr. did indeed use his fast repair. Remember, did have a touch bit of right side damage from prior wall contact. Everybody else, for the most part, did stay out inside the top 10. That's on about green flag distance, 5 laps on the tires, so they are fairly heated up. But one of the main things in the past few weeks, especially drivers have been noticing, the more tire cycles you have, the more time you stay out, the worse it can be for overall speed on the run if you get one, because you're maintaining a lot of the heat inside the tires instead of getting the chance to put on fresh ones, which are much cooler.
So we'll see how it goes for those drivers in that position, Justin. It looks like we're still going to have 14 trucks on the lead lap. Tyler King into number 44 is currently being scored a lap down. He may have gotten the lucky dog here. I'm not sure what the situation is. Remember, we talked about Jeff Stabnow being the first truck being scored not on the lead lap, but Tyler King is now being scored 1 lap down. Not sure what happened there with the 44.
Can confirm he was the lucky dog indeed, so he is now the only truck, in fact, 1 lap down. Everybody else behind him who is not a lead lap, 2 laps or more down in this race. But now it's gone from a long run race to start the event tonight to the importance of short run, maintaining track position, being smart with how you handle your truck. How do you try and, again, keep that focus in your mindset now where it's difficult to get the long runs? You mentioned yourself, you prefer the long runs.
Yeah, all these cautions that have happened here in the second half of this race, that's making it difficult for these guys to get into that rhythm, because every time they get into that rhythm and they start getting into it, a caution comes out and all of a sudden they've got to settle themselves back down, reassess, and do it all again. Where the drivers that maybe like myself who prefer the long run, they need about 15, 20 laps to really get into the rhythm of things. And once they get into the rhythm, they can really start making their moves one at a time and try to make their way through the field.
1 to go until the race start once again, and we'll see how this goes. Of note, Dan Lather has indeed reached the incident limit we're referring to, has an end of longest line penalty. The first of the drivers still currently running to now be in that drive-through penalty range. Dan West Jr. still in the lead. Anderson, O'Hare, Chris White, Devin West now the top 5. Green flag is out. Early launch this time. And once more, O'Hare now takes advantage on the bottom.
That's another case of Dan West Jr. being unpredictable on the restarts. Just talked about it a few restarts ago, how he was doing different strategies there on the restarts, and it's really been helping him be able to throw whoever it would be to his outside, whether it be his son Devin, Caden Anderson, Stephen O'Hare was up there for one. It's really be able to throw him off because he's not being predictable, and he's able to really kind of mess with them a little bit on the restart by going in different time zones.
Bit of a shot for P3. O'Hare got a hit from the back end of West. Devin West wants his top 3 back. Trying to build up a run. Backs up the corner this time. Chris White now joins the fun once again. How will he try and get by these trucks as O'Hare has a bobble?
So Chris White, remember, he had to take the fast repair. Has quietly worked his way back into the top 5. Another great performance from Chris White. Boy, it seems like that race at Kansas, that first race of the year in the Ford Mustang for Chris White, really seemed to give him a spark, because ever since then, both in the Cup Series and in the Truck Series in the starts since then, as he really started running the trucks after that, he has been on another level. Chris White really seemed to find his groove again that he had in the second half of last season Xfinity Series.
He's been looking very confident in whether it's been the truck or the Cup car, absolutely. Nearly tapping the wall at that time was Devin West in that fight. Speaking of fights, P7 just traded hands in the backdrop. That was because the 17 of Bill Ross Jr. was able to get by one of the quiet storylines tonight. Frank Harris, we've seen multiple bits of bad luck for that silver and blue truck. Tonight, he's been holding firm inside the top 10 quietly now in this run.
Yeah, great job for him. But keeping an eye back up on this battle for third, Devin West is beginning to put the pressure on once again for Stephen O'Hare in that third spot. West taking a little bit of a lower entry there as the top 2 break away once again. West Jr. and Anderson. Here comes Chris White coming in with a lower entry than both O'Hare and West here, Justin. So this battle for third is going to take a break here for a second, as that was a big slide out of Devin West.
Turns into a battle for fourth. That quickly goes Chris White's way. What a save for Devin West off of turn 4. Any more of a bobble and that truck is going straight nose first into the outside wall.
That just shows how good of a driver Devin West is, and we've seen it in his few starts in the series. He has really turned it on. He has become a regular ever since his debut a few races into the season, and that includes the win at Homestead. So Devin West has always been a contender every single race, and that save right there shows just how talented that young man really is. And that big slide right there, that's that dirt racing in him.
Yeah, but if you slide the tires, it also hurts your overall speed for the rest of the run. That's got to be something that Devin has to be thinking about now, because that slide has now heated up both the back tires.
See how it goes for Devin West. Ryan Main's beginning to creep back up in the picture. Remember the struggles he had earlier in the race. He's back up to the 6th. Very quiet charge back for Ryan Maines, but you're seeing it that Devin West, this tire slide has really been affecting him in that number 5 truck. He's beginning to gather it back up and reel back in on Chris White now. So it's starting to come back to him, but how much damage to the tires did that slide do?
We'll see the ramifications as this run progresses. Just a touch bit of a bobble off a turn 4 that time, as the lead has closed back up and quickly. Anderson seems to again have found some speed. Not as good in the short run this time. However, it seems once we got about 6 laps in to this run, a 10th plus faster a lap now in the back bumper of West Jr. with traffic ahead. Dana Rogers may be a factor in this fight as Anderson tries to find any way to get on by him before they reach the traffic.
Anderson is there. Remember, at the time of the last caution, Anderson was to the door of the 55. That was the only challenge that West has had all night. He's led every single lap, but Caden Anderson was the first driver to really throw something at him as they get around Dana Rogers in the 07, and Anderson knew he's looking the outside. Had to back out of it, though, but interesting move there by Anderson. Think about the outside there, Justin. We haven't seen that all day.
I think he's trying to diamond the corner. That's the thing here, Greg. It didn't work, though. That's the thing. He's trying these different lines to try and see whatever can work. You can't just try the same thing over and over again. It ends up potentially seeing the same results.
So here he is setting up once again. 0.3 of a second the difference that last time they crossed the strike as they roll down the backstretch now. They're pulling away again from O'Hare, Chris White, and the rest behind him. So now we're seeing it once again break into these two. We cross the strike again. We see the margin. West just a hair ticker, about 100th quicker than Anderson.
Oh, trouble. Devin West blown an engine hard into the outside wall in turn 2. And this may be a caution.
Still reading now the caution.
Stopped on the racetrack. Look at this, puffed in the engine.
Another heartbreaker for Devin West.
And we mentioned he had a bit of damage on the front nose from some of the contact maybe before in a bump and run. Not able to get down to the bottom of the track with how quickly that engine went over the oil and water temps. And now it gets really dicey with 30 to go. This opens up the can of worms, because if we get a caution after this, Greg, that's where I think a lot of people may stay out.
Yeah, we are really getting into the spot that strategy is going to really start varying. This is the moment that we missed Sean Breitzman, right? Because you know if anyone was going to try it in this position, it was going to be that 46 truck. So this is where we're missing Sean Breitzman as everybody comes down pit road.
Of note, Bill Ross Jr. and Roy Grande both charged up to the top 6 before the caution flag on just a few lap fresher tires. Anderson, though, looking really solid on the pit entry, closed up a truck length before they went into the pit boxes. As we've seen, though, that first pit box has been so advantageous tonight for Dan West.
Every single time they've made a pit stop, Dan West Jr. has used that first pit box to his advantage. Here we come once again. West Jr. wins the charge off. Anderson will be second. O'Hare third. Looks like Chris White is going to roll off behind the 18 of Roy Grande. We may have seen a strategy call on the 18.
This is a scratcher a little bit for Roy Grande. Took 2 tires, only gained 1 spot from it. Bad news for Caden Anderson, though. Caught speeding in the 37. There goes one of the fastest trucks in the field to the back of the field. Caden Anderson's caught speeding.
That is a heartbreaker for Caden Anderson. Such a strong run all day long. Really the only driver who's had anything for Dan West Jr. in the 55 was able to get up to his door, and now with less than 30 laps to go, he's going to have to work his way through the field. You know he's going to fight back and try to get himself back in the top 10, but he's going to restart, I believe, 13th. I don't know if he can get back up into the top 5. We'll see. but that's a tall order.
Was 4 miles an hour quicker at green cone at the end of the pit lane, trying to stay in second position and can't come out in front of O'Hare and Grande. Now he gets to pay the price at the back part of the field here. Still 2 to go until the restart. That moves O'Hare now into the second position. Grande, White, Bill Ross Jr. the top 5. Now it gets very curious to see if O'Hare's got the pace to run forward as Anderson stops the track to let by some of the drivers he needs to let go.
Yeah, O'Hare has been up there on the outside of West Jr. for a restart already today. Don't forget, Roy Grande is on 2 tires in the 18 truck, back up in the 3rd spot. New look for him and a gutsy call there to take 2 tires. And Justin, you think it might be too early for that, or what are you thinking on that 18?
Well, at Richmond, there is kind of the ballpark you can play around with of up to 20 laps on a green flag run. We're at that ballpark. Here's the problem. If we go green the rest of the way, this may backfire for Grande. It might be decent for the first 10-15 laps, Greg, as we get the 1 to go.
And what if we catch another caution, though? This is where we got to talk about that. Yeah. Because if we can catch another caution in the next couple laps, which has been a trend throughout the course of the day, ever since that long green flag run, our longest run has been, 20, 25 laps or so. So Grande might be catching on to that trend, and he's hoping that it happens one more time.
We'll see if the trend continues or how this race dictates itself. 26 to go from Richmond. Pace car is off. West Jr. goes with the midway approach this time. Green flag back out. Back underway. A good launch for the 55.
Oh, Grande slides way up the track in front of Chris White. Look who that opened the door for. Where did Bill Ross Jr. come back from? He's back up in the top 5 in the 17 after his problems.
Where did James Thurston come from as well in the Disney Parks machine? He's now into the grouping for a top 5. Grande forced up the bottom. Trouble for Thurston. Nearly spanked it off the wall into a truck. Paulison also got loose off of turn 4. We stay green.
Stay green for the time being. Chris White has gotten around Roy Grande to move into the 3rd spot. Trying to bring Bill Rosser with him. John Ombacher peeking on Ray Fournier. Ray Fournier was a couple laps down at one point in the race. He's up in 7th now after starting 22nd. He's going to fall back to 8th here as Ottenbacher gets around him, but what a recovery for the 26 of Fournier.
And there's only 12 trucks on the lead lap, so there's a chance he can come away with one of his best finishes of the season here tonight as a result. But a lot of shuffling as Grande gets turned. Contact from the 17. Nowhere for Johnson and Thurston to go with the stack up.
Grande was hoping for a caution. He was hoping to not be cautioned. And unfortunately, that's what happened.
Open up the bottom, and Bill Ross Jr. move right in. Hard hit, though, for Johnson and Thurston as they had nowhere to go in the bottom of the racetrack. That may have just taken Johnson out of contention for this one. He was a couple laps down still. Might have had the chance to maybe get some laps back, but now has significant right front damage on his truck.
Remember, he was one of those drivers who had to use the fast repair earlier in the day, so he does not have a fast repair in the bank anymore on that 7 truck. So that's going to be a long last 25 laps if he can't get much of that damage repaired. Looks like Tyler King in the 44 will receive the lucky dog. Justin is here. He comes on the outside, and Tyler King, remember, used his fast repair and then got torn up in an accident about half a lap into that next green flag run. Has been a couple laps down ever since. He just got his way back on the lead lap in 13th position in the number 44. And that crumpled up race truck, we might not have seen the last of it. He can creep up if he can stay clean the rest of the way. He might still be able to salvage the top 10.
Yeah, good news for him. As well, Anderson's had to come down to the pit lane. We mentioned those 2 trucks who were getting loose off turn 4. He ran to the back end of Paulison, the second of those machines, and smashed in hard the front nose. So it continues to get worse. Now Anderson, if anything else happens to 37 in the midst of the pack, he's now going to have to live with the ramifications. He had been dealing with just a touch of right front damage before the contact with Paulison.
So let's see. what Anderson can do for the last 20 laps. Already back to 12. Second to last truck on the lead lap. Roy Grande right in front of him. So Anderson trying to fight his way back after the speeding penalty.
Many trucks making their way behind the iRacing official pace car here, coming to about 20 laps to go. And a vast majority of these competitors, remember, have already used the faster pairs. Outside of a few drivers in the front of the field, everyone's been involved in at least one incident, it seems, tonight. 2 to go until the restart. It has been topsy-turvy in that 5th through 10th grouping, where it seems everyone's been changing positions like decks of cards and or chairs on the deck of a pool, just about.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes for these drivers. Brett Johnson has brought the number 7 behind the wall, so that will be another truck out of the race. And honestly, for everything that's happened, not very many trucks out of the race, Justin. Just a handful of trucks. Cameron Doyle has not officially retired from the race, but he is on pit road 74 laps down. Brett Johnson will be, I believe, the 5th truck out of the race.
Yeah, so far tonight, Doyle, Chisholm, Burke, Steiner, Fletcher, and now add another. Done for the race. Everybody else still going. Last car currently scored running as Dana Rogers 5 laps down in this race. 1 to go until the restart. Once again, the Effective Web Solutions truck of Dan West Jr. leads them to the green this time. The Keep Oregon Well machine starts in 2nd. The Interstate Synthetics machine starts in 3rd. But the Lakeshore Electric Incorporated machine of Bill Ross Jr. rounding up the top 4. The Armor machine in 5th, and LSR TV green. Shiny truck of John Onnenbacher rounds out the top 6. Very early launch this time for West Jr., and Chris White spins the tires. Bobbles around the truck, still staying green. Looks like he avoids trouble, but had a hard hit to the right rear.
A lot of damage on the right rear, Chris White. Remember, he already used the fast repair, so he does not have that in the bank anymore. Looks like he may have had some contact with Ross Jr. after the slide on the restart.
3 wide up in front of them. Drivers ducking to the apron and stacking up off the corner. Ryan Maines really just got taken around big time to the corner.
Ryan Maines was actually the driver who caught the 83 of White. It was not Ross like I initially thought. It was Ryan Maines who caught the rear of the 83 truck, and we're seeing it. He is slow, and he's coming in with damage. The 13 truck not going to be able to continue with the damage that he suffered in that. He's coming in, and that's such a shame because what a recovery he had today, Justin.
So Maines now ducks in the pit lane. Thurston is still inside the lane after some of his troubles earlier on today. But all of this is shuffled around. Bill Ross Jr. to 3rd, O'Hare to 2nd, and Dan West Jr. still leads with 15 laps to go in this race.
Every single lap has been led by the 55 of West Jr. Closing stages of this one. Stephen O'Hare up in 2nd. Bill Ross Jr. coming back up in 3rd. Justin, who's in 4th? Look who's fought his way back.
Caden Anderson.
Where did he come from?
Well, we came all the way from 12th, and when you have drivers going 3 wide, it's fairly easy to gain some track position. One of the faster trucks on the track. Downside is he did smack the wall when we seen him just moments ago pass by John Onnenbacher. If there's another yellow, he's back in it.
I think he is back in it regardless because he is flying through the field trying to get back up to Bill Ross Jr. He made some air pressure adjustments on the pit stop and was able to find something on that 37. Remember, he was not happy with that number 37 truck at the start of this race. He has found something, and it is hooked up now as he's trying to fight his way back up onto the podium.
Needs to close up 2 seconds to Dan West Jr. is currently a 10th of a second quicker a lap than everybody else in front of him. 12 laps to go. O'Hare separated from the 55 by about 6/10 of a second. Just has not been able to close up the gap too much during the longer runs today.
Real big slide there from Caden Anderson at the 37 off the turn number 2. He really slid it there. He is wheeling that number 37 as we're coming up on 10 laps to go.
11 to go now in this race. Fastest truck again. Anderson amongst the top 5. Onnenbacher in the 22 4s. Everyone else 22 flats or 22 1s. Another big bubble. He's really going for it hard.
He is still gaining on our field. He was a 10th quicker that last time by. We'll see what it is this time. As he crosses the strike, loses that 10th back. So Caden Anderson giving it all he has in that number 37. But he is flying right now, trying to reel back in and catch up to the 17 and get back on the podium.
By the way, you may see a truck on bottom apron. That's Ryan Maines. He's had to come down 3 times now for significant right front damage repair. He's trying to finish this race, currently now 2 laps down. Focus stays on Anderson. The gap is currently about 4 truck lengths, and he hits the wall again.
And that was a vicious shot. He's able to keep going, but man, oh man, that's going to be hard to recover.
And take a look at the right rear just a little bit. Smacked it a little bit on corner entry. That was the same type of damage that was seen from Maines before he had to duck down, and that really hurt his truck. And this is looking like it's not affecting Anderson as much, but still, it's going to be damage he's going to have to deal with for another 7+ laps.
If you're Caden Anderson, you are giving it all you've got. You don't want to come to pit road at this point unless you absolutely have to. And he's still able to close in on Bill Ross Jr. He's making rounds trying to get up onto the podium in that number 7 truck. But at this point, he's throwing the damage out the window and saying, forget about it. I'm trying to get up here and get back into the top 3. He's got a little over 5 laps to do it. I believe 6 laps left in this one. And man, oh man, Caden is there on Bill Ross Jr.
Coming to 5 laps to go this time by. Major tightness for Ross Jr. off the corner. Anderson looking for a chance to move into P3. Gains an air truck length at the bottom of 3 and 4. Ross Jr. again with a bit of a bobble. At this point, do you fight it if you're Ross Jr. or do you try and let Anderson go and just take the points?
Fight it as long as you can. That's a top 3 here in Richmond and a podium interview to give a shout out to your sponsors. You are fighting for every position you can at this particular stage. We will see how it goes. Anderson is there. Ross not giving up though.
For Ross Jr. in line, if he can hold on to this for another 3.5 laps for his first top 5 of the season. Anderson nearly hits the back end. Ross Jr. gets loose, bubbles down to the bottom of the racetrack. Goes to the yellow line in 3 and 4. Anderson goes for the crossover off of turn 4. Can he get the run is the question. No, forced to check him again.
Right on the back bumper of Ross across the finish line. Into turn number 1. He's there giving the bumper. Lines up. Oh! Into the wall.
And caution is not out yet. They're still hooked together. Now it's out as Ross Jr. flips down the back straightaway. Green-white checker time and a significant wreck.
Fighting for everything they had, and it ends for the 2nd straight week. Bill Ross Jr. going for a tumble inside 5 laps to go.
Wow. And again, Ross Jr. was in line if he could hold on to 3rd or 4th for his first top 5. His best finish was P7. Not anymore, as his engine is now expired, and now it gets interesting. Looks like most of the leaders do stay out here, but now we're in the first of 2 green-white checkered attempts here, Greg, to decide this race.
So the guy who did not want to see that was the 55 of Dan West Jr. because he was smooth sailing and was already cashing the check and trying to get ready for his victory celebration, and all of a sudden he's going to have to fend off Stephen O'Hare one more time. Caden Anderson, a lot of damage now on the front of the 37 truck. He's in 3rd. Tom Green coming around for the lucky dog. He will now be 1 lap down in the 77. Oh boy, what's going to happen?
Yeah, this is going to get very, very dicey in the middle of the pack, especially trying to get around Anderson. That's if Anderson elects to keep the track position. We'll see. Does he duck in? No. He's going to try and hold on for the best he can. To remind you once again, with green-white checkered procedure here on iRacing, if you get the white flag, the race is official. Next flag ends the race, and that will mean the checker flag will be next flag overall. If we get a caution, though, before we get the white flag off the initial start, That will mean we'll go to a second green-white checkered. There's an air caution flag before the white flag on the second attempt. Race will finish under caution, and race is official at that point. We've said it many times, you want to finish the race clean and green, and now it can get very, very dicey here, to say the least, for that third on-back position with Autumnbacher, Maines, and Devin West check that, and Frank Harris among some of those drivers with a chance to finish in third now.
How about Frank Harris up in the top 5 after starting 24th? He was laps down at one point in this race. What would you do for a Klondike bar? How about move from 24th to 5th up in the standings for a green-white checkered with Devin West to your outside? Outstanding performance by Frank Harris. We haven't talked about him at all tonight.
The downside is he'll get the pleasure of starting behind Anderson when the green flag flies. 2 to go signal now on the track. That's why all the lap trucks are now moving off to the side to let them on go. Paulson check is in P6. Maines, pardon me, is a lap down in this situation. Overall, 11 trucks are on the lead lap with a chance to move into positions. Now it's going to be the question, though, is there any chance for any of them to make a move on Dan West Jr. for this win?
It's going to have to come going into turn 3 on the first lap, I would believe, because we know Dan West Jr. is going to try to fake out Stephen O'Hare and do anything he can to keep him back there on the initial start. We've seen it so many times out of Dan West Jr. tonight, taking different ways on the front. So it will be very interesting to see what he does on this restart. He's got Caden Anderson behind him with a lot of damage on the 37 truck. If anyone's going to have to do it, they're going to have to do it, I think, going into turn number 3, coming to the white.
Field in the hands of Dan West Jr. He has led just about every single lap tonight. And the effective Web Solution Chevrolet Silverado looks to close it out under this green-white checkered. Pace car off the circuit. Green flag in the air. 2 laps to go from Richmond. A blistering launch for West Jr.
That's what he needed to do right there. He had to get a big enough launch to get away from them and try to make it to where they couldn't make a move. Great restart there by Dan West Jr. Frank Harris up in the 4th, trying to get around Ottenbacher. They settle down for second. Dan West Jr. has come to the white, and I think he may have timed that perfectly and gotten himself a big enough advantage.
White flag up in the air. Race is official. Just 0.75 miles to go for Dan West Jr. He's been in control of the field since the drop of the green flag tonight. He's just about to do it. He's led every single lap tonight at Richmond. He'll come away as the winner tonight. Dan West Jr. takes it home of the action track.
West Jr. with a wire-to-wire victory here tonight in Richmond. Led every lap. Stephen O'Hare 3rd. How about Caden Anderson rallying for 3rd? Stephen O'Hare 2nd, sorry.
Heck of a race tonight and heck of a truck for Dan West Jr. Absolutely dominating. Already everyone congratulating Frank Harris as well for his P4 finish. 20 positions gained, his best finish in a long time after some bad luck for Harris. Burning it down, though, is the fastest truck of them all evening, Dan West Jr.
Smoke him if you got him. Dan West Jr. We talked about it before the race. He had been the strongest truck on so many occasions, but something would go wrong late at night or late in the going and seemed to put him in a position that he couldn't recover from. That was nowhere to be seen tonight. Wire to wire for West.
And as he gets flipped up into the sky, that's a better time than not to go to your unofficial race results for this evening. Dan West Jr. comes home with the victory tonight. Stephen O'Hare in 2nd position. Caden Anderson rounds out the top 3 for this evening. Frank Harris, John Ottenbacher 4th and 5th. Ray Fournier comes home in 6th position. Chris White, Stephen Paulson in P8. Grande and Tyler Kane rounded up the 10 trucks who made it on the lead lap tonight here, Greg.
First truck 1 lap down. The only truck 1 lap down was Tom Green, who made his debut tonight in 11th spot with James Thurston behind him in 2nd. Up and down night for him. What a heartbreak for Bill Ross Jr. up in the top 3 late. late race incident, goes for a tumble on the backstretch. He finishes 13th. Devin West, another guy who had such an up-and-down night, comes home 14th after getting up as high as second. Jeff Stabnow, 2 straight wins entering the night. That streak comes to an end with a 15th place finish tonight. Ryan Maines, Dana Rogers, Dan Lowther, Brett Johnson, and Cameron Doyle round out the top 20.
21st position, Adam Chisholm. Carl Burke also DNF'd in 22nd after starting in the top 10. Jackson Steiner in his season debut, 23rd. William Fletcher, 24th. Corey Walters, a DNS tonight after being one of the 25 trucks who came out to Richmond this evening. We'll take a step aside. When we come back, post-race coverage will get underway. You're watching LSR TV, live from the virtual Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia.
They say everything is bigger. These guys down in Texas aren't messing around. This feature race will separate the boys from the men, the girls from the ladies. Can you handle racing 300 laps for $25,000? It's not as easy as you think. We don't stop to tow those too weak. We just push them out of the way. We don't run 20 laps. We run 300 each night. We don't care about what you and your boys have under the hood. Bring all you got. Don't be scared. Call my Cowboy Jack today to get signed up. It all goes down on October 2nd and 3rd in Mesquite, Texas, just outside of Dallas. Kenny Wallace is coming back this year to try again. You don't have excuses. Go to LoneStar600.com now.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Welcome back, everyone, to LSR TV for tonight's coverage of the Northwest Truck Series live from Richmond Raceway as we join you for the Clan Wars Servers post-race show. The Clan Wars, the official communication partner of LSR TV. It was an entertaining race tonight with a lot of thrills, chills, and spills. Dan West Jr. led all 205 laps. Let's start down the line, shall we? We'll start off actually with second place tonight, and Stephen O'Hara. Standing by with him is Greg Rentz.
Yeah, Stephen O'Hara, what a performance for you tonight. We were keeping our eyes on you through the course of the race. Very quiet night for you. You very methodically made your way through the field, and it wound up in second place. Great job for you tonight.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, we're running special schemes for the month of May for mental health awareness. So I got the Keep Oregon Well in the Stigma campaign on the truck, and the 44 is running the NAMI paint scheme. So I just want to shout out to that. In terms of the night, yeah, I felt like I had a pretty decent truck. We didn't qualify all that well, but hung up there towards the front. And towards the end there, Dan looked loose, and I felt like I had something for him, but it seemed like I couldn't get out of his tire tracks. Every time he'd wiggle a little bit, I'd wiggle. So he certainly had the truck to beat, and anytime finishing second to him, I feel like that's a good night for me. So yeah, it's a fun race. Really pleased with second place.
And Stefan, especially coming after a week off, to get right back in and get that momentum going once again with a second place finish. That's got to be good after being out of the seat for quite some time.
Yeah, joking around, we've been out of the truck for quite some time, so jumping in was a little bit new. But we I ran pretty well at the mile and a halfs, so it's nice to come to Richmond and have a good showing.
All right, well, Stephen O'Hare back in the driver's seat here with a second place at Richmond. Next week, we are going to Auto Club in California. We're going Hollywood in this series. Are you excited for a trip out west?
Absolutely. I generally run pretty good at California. I think that's been my favorite track, before iRacing came along. So hopefully that carries over and we'll be competing for the win there.
All right, well, Stephen O'Hare second tonight, and I know you got some guys that you want to give a thank you to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys, LSR TV. It's really fun to see our races shown, and I know I have friends and family members that watch it. And then the Northwest Racing Series. It's a really fun, great group of guys, very competitive. In any competitive arena, I think we beat and bang and ruffle some feathers, but it's just really a great group of guys. And so hopefully we put on a great show for everyone.
All right, that's second base, Stephen O'Hare. Great job for you tonight.
Thank you.
And real quick, Justin, before we go down to you in Victory Lane, quick update. Caden Anderson has lost all sound communication with us. So real quick, before we go down to Victory Lane, he wanted me to give a quick shout to his sponsors, Harvest Chevrolet, Custom Fab, and of course, one of my home tracks that I get the privilege to be on the mic every week, Hermiston Raceway, powered by Rogers Toyota. They're all back in the number 37, who had a great third place run tonight, overcoming a lot of trouble. But Justin, you've caught up with our race winner.
Yes, indeed. Dan West Jr., dominant truck tonight, especially on the long run. How does it feel to be the winner tonight in such dominating fashion? Every single lap went your way.
Thanks, guys. It felt great. It felt good to put the work in. I know Jeff Stabnow helped me a lot on this setup, and I want to thank him for that. The set was really good in the beginning, and then I felt like I struggled a little bit towards the end there. But for the most part, it was a pretty good piece. I know Caden was really good. I was kind of trying to just save my stuff a little bit, and when I knew he got close to me, then I stepped it up a notch. But Chris White was really good, as you've seen halfway through the race. So to hold those guys off felt pretty good.
One of the talking points tonight was blistering hot track tonight. At the drop of the green flag and throughout practice and qualifying as well, track temp was high 20s, low 130s for this evening. Cooled off towards the end, yes, but how difficult was it to make sure you didn't snap around off the corners with how slick this circuit was this evening?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. Like I say, it was just, especially being out front. You're trying to pace, right? You're trying to save your stuff, and you're trying not to burn the right rear tire off or burn the right front tire off of it. So you get out there and you get a little bit of lead. So you're watching that mirror, and you're just trying to use as much truck as you need to stay out front. So you could definitely tell the track was a lot different than I'd even practiced on ever. So it was after a long run, it was starting to lose the right rear pretty good.
Yeah, it was looking very slippery for a lot of the drivers. Two things to note, though. First things first, you're the season leader in victories now with 4, but as well, you're now 4th all-time on your own in the history of the Truck Series in victories, your 7th career win in this series. How does it feel now to be just now 9 wins away from 3rd all-time Jeff Stabnow?
It feels pretty good, especially behind Jeff. I mean, that guy's an all-time champion. I mean, so to even be close to him feels pretty good. Like I say, the series that we run in is incredible. Like Stefan said, it's so much fun to run with these guys because you can be really competitive with them. You can get up, rub doors with them, and at the end of the day, we're still all friends.
Next race after week 13 is on June 11th. Auto Club, 200 miles, 100 laps. Your thoughts on Auto Club?
I love it. I love high tire wear type tracks. I like rough tracks. I like where you have to get up on the wheel every single lap that you just can't cruise. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyone
you want to thank before we let you go?
You guys, Greg, Justin, Will, LSR TV, you guys are awesome. Like I always tell you every week, I have family out there that I appreciate watching. They give me a call and tell me how great of a job you guys do. And Northwest Racing Series, Effective Web Solutions, Jeff Stabnow again for the awesome paint, and Stefan O'Hare, good job, buddy. It was great to see you back there.
Congratulations on the victory tonight in such dominating fashion, Dan. Congrats.
Thanks, guys. See you in a couple weeks.
Yes, indeed. That's Dan West Jr., your winner tonight. Also like to thank Stefan O'Hare for taking the time to speak with us. Apologies again for the technical difficulties for Caden Anderson this evening, your third place finisher. But Greg, your final thoughts on what was a very eventful race, especially for battles among the top 5 and top 10.
Yeah, we saw great racing from the top 5 all night long. Very respectful racing. A lot of drivers kind of picking and choosing. Okay, this guy's a little bit faster than me. I'll let him go. I'll get him back next time around. And we saw a lot of that all night long. Unfortunate that we had as many cautions that we did. I was hoping we would get at least one more long green stretching like we did the first half of the race. But it all worked out. We got the race in. 200 laps the distance tonight, and it was all in all a very fun race to call, and looking forward to whenever the next time we get to come back to Richmond is.
Absolutely. The next race on the calendar is after week 13, and there's going to be a lot of wrenches for Auto Club Speedway and 200 miles of racing there because we mentioned the new Ford F-150 coming in during week 13 potentially. There's also the talks of tire adjustments to the trucks and a couple other adjustments to how these trucks will handle by the time we get to Auto Club. Your thoughts on what we may see and how these drivers may adapt to some of the potential changes come Thursday in a couple weeks.
Going back to what Stefan O'Hare said, Auto Club is one of my favorite tracks on the surface. So many grooves. We see 4, sometimes 5 wide racing out there in real life, and it's one of the most exciting tracks on the venue. And it wasn't always like that, Justin. Auto Club used to be a venue where there wasn't a lot of action going on as it was relying purely on horsepower. But lately, it has been wild out there in Fontana, California, and I am looking forward to when we get to go there in a couple of weeks after week 13. But we all got a bunch of stuff to do coming up here on week 13. But once we get settled down with that, it'll be time to go.
With that, it's time for us to go for tonight's coverage of the Northwest Truck Series. Thank you very much for tuning in. For our director tonight, and Will Duvall. For my broadcast partner, Greg Rentz, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. We'll see you in about a couple weeks when we go to Auto Club for the Northwest Truck Series. You've been watching LSR TV, your home for sim racing.
User disconnect.
Broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of 52 Media LLC and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.